Chapter 2411. Young Master Jean, listen to me, Bai Lianxin anxiously explained. It's not what you think. This is all a trap set by them. They want to drive a wedge between us. Don't you think your explanation is too weak? Luo Qingshun put her hands in her pockets, shrugged and chuckled. What a joke. You, Bai Lianxin bit her lips and said, don't slander me. You, Luo Qingshun imitated her tone and sneered. Don't provoke me. I have a bad temper. If I can't control my ability, you might already be reported to the King of Hell. She didn't know why, but at this moment, when she saw Bai Lianxin panicking, her face full of hatred but unable to do anything, she felt especially happy. A person falling from the 3rd floor to the 1st floor wasn't scary. What was scary was falling from the 100th floor to the 1st floor. That kind of contrast in one's heart was the most torturous feeling. Bai Lianxin saw the coldness in Luo Qingshun's eyes. Even if she had countless words to say to her in her heart, she didn't dare to say a word. Although she didn't understand Luo Qingshun, she knew that if she didn't have Hua Kaijin as her backing, if she wanted to use her ability to kill her, no one would be able to stop her. So right now, the most important thing to her was still Hua Kaijin. Big brother Jean, you don't believe me? She held her chest and screamed with all her strength. This time, she didn't even call him Young Master Jean. She directly called him Big Brother Jean. In the past, she liked to call him Big Brother Jean, but after her confession was rejected, she angrily called him Young Master Jean. Because Hua Kaijin didn't mind calling him that. Over time, she was used to calling him Young Master Jean. But now, she called him Big Brother Jean again. She wanted to evoke the first memory between them. The surrounding air suddenly became quiet, until a few seconds later, Hua Kaijin slowly raised his eyes and looked at her coldly. Yes. I don't believe you. We are classmates. How can you believe them and not me? With tears in her eyes, Bai Lianxin pretended to be aggrieved and said, I'm that Lianxin who likes you the most. They're my classmates too. Hua Caijin's voice was cold and decisive, as if he didn't want to give Bai Lianxin any chance, or perhaps he was completely disappointed in her. He looked up at her arrogantly and said, also, I only believe in my own eyes. Actually, he was disappointed in his heart. After all, being nice to a person and receiving such a reward in return, anyone would feel suffocated. However, he was also glad that he had seen her true colors in advance. If he didn't personally see it today, he might have held back what Luo Qingshun and Qin Xinai said, but after personally seeing it, he felt how stupid he was. He was so stupid that he needed someone who had nothing to do with him to remind him not to be so stupid. No. Bai Lianxin saw that things had reached a point of no return, so she rushed forward to grab Hua Caijin's arm. Believe me, this matter definitely isn't what you think. She didn't know how to explain it, so she could only use the most common method to stabilize Hua Kaijin. After all, this was the power user she had just pulled in, the only person who would protect her in the apocalypse. In the next second, Hua Kaijin forcefully swung her right hand, and an extremely strong wind instantly sent Bai Lianxin flying 5 meters away. Chapter 2412. During dinner time, Luo Qingshun didn't go down to eat. Instead, she walked around this exotic castle. When she first entered the door, she felt that something was wrong. This feeling of wrongness did not give her any other feeling of familiarity or joy. Instead, it was dangerous. Because she was really confused, she went to Hua Caijin's room to ask for some details. When she opened the door, he had already changed his clothes. Although he looked a little tired, he seemed to have adjusted his mood. Can I come in and talk? Hua Kaijin seemed to have just recovered. He politely made a path for Luo Qingshun and said, of course. He made her a pot of fruit flower tea and said embarrassedly, I didn't have time to collect supplies. Please don't mind. I won't. Luo Qingshun sipped the tea and said, it's delicious. That's good. Hua Kaijin showed a faint smile and said, Student Luo, why are you looking for me? If it's about Bai Lianxin, you don't have to say more. If I still don't understand, then I'm really hopeless. For Luo Qingshun, he always had the feeling of looking up at her from a low place. She was like the stars in the sky. He could only look up and see her, but he couldn't touch her. That kind of unreachable. About that kind of person, I think student Hua can handle it. Luo Qingxun's eyebrows moved slightly and said, I want to ask about this villa. What are your considerations for setting it as a safe zone? Probably because Luo Qingxun's question was a bit abrupt, Hua Kaijin froze for a long time and then frowned and said, Isn't a place without zombies a safe zone? Luo Qingxun heard this, and her face changed slightly. She frowned slightly, and her right hand's fingertips habitually tapped on the table and said, It's not a place without zombies that is a safe zone. In other words, a place without zombies is not necessarily a safe zone. What do you mean? Hua Kaijin looked at Luo Qingxun's frown and inexplicably felt a bit nervous. He took a deep breath and said, Student Luo, why don't you just say it? I don't understand why you're beating around the bush. Before the apocalypse, I heard from the expert about the development and direction of the apocalypse. Luo Qingxun raised her eyebrows slightly and said, When I first came in, I saw some things hanging in the dark corners. At first, I thought they were spiders or other animals, but after I looked at them carefully for a long time, I realized that they weren't. What's that? Hua Kaijin raised her eyes and said, I was outside the whole day and didn't have time to observe carefully. I only know that there were no zombies in this villa when I came. Heart. A human heart. Luo Qingxun rested her chin on her left hand and said, I also found intestines on the ceiling of the corridor on the right corner of the third floor. What? Hua Kaijin's expression changed as he said in shock, You're saying that zombies have been here before? It should be a level 3 zombie or above. Luo Qingxun thought for a while and said, If I'm not wrong, it shouldn't have been here before. Instead, this should be a place for them to stay. It seemed that the population of this city was too high, so there were too many deaths. The zombies evolved very quickly. Level 3 zombies already knew how to move in groups and even find a place for themselves to stay and store what they thought was food. Oh my God, so they will come back? Hua Kaijin suddenly stood up and said, I have to inform them immediately. Chapter 24:13. Hua Kaijin was slightly surprised. He thought Luo Qingxun was an easy girl to get along with, but in the next second, he could feel the coldness in her eyes and killing intent. For Luo Qingxun, there were some things that needed to be explained, because just now, she inadvertently saw a faint green light flash on by Lianxin's head. It was a very faint light that disappeared quickly, but she was sure that it was the sign of an ability awakening. It turned out that Bai Lianxin really had an ability in this post-apocalyptic world. If she hadn't seen it, then it was either a spiritual ability or a healing ability. No matter what kind of ability it was extremely powerful. In the later stages of the post-apocalyptic world, there would be more and more injured people and even ability users. Because of the pollution of water and medical supplies, it would become more and more serious. For example, antibiotics, penicillin, and some other commonly used drugs would be sold for sky-high prices. A bottle of penicillin could even be exchanged for an off-road vehicle and a box of food. In the later stages, drugs were extremely precious, so precious that they had become priceless treasures. Therefore, no matter if it was a spiritual ability or a healing ability, they were all very important in the later stages of the post-apocalyptic world. Just like a character in a game, there were many kinds of attacking characters, but most of the time, there was only one healing character. Originally, she thought that perhaps she could keep Bai Lianxin for a while, but now it seemed that the King of Hell couldn't wait to see her. At midnight, the red moon in the sky was slowly covered by dark clouds. There were many rooms in the villa, but there were very few people. Luo Qingxun carefully checked the food storage hanging in the dark corners of each floor. She roughly determined the number of zombies in their rooms. Among them, there were 2 rooms that were more dangerous. The first room was a side bedroom on the first floor. Luo Qingxun let the ant who originally lived there change rooms. As for the second room, it was the master bedroom on the 3rd floor where Bai Lianxin lived. However, at this moment, Bai Lianxin didn't feel the slightest bit of danger. After Hua Kaijin left, although she was very flustered, she still walked forward to pick up the shower gel and perfume he bought for her after calming down. The things inside were quite complete, but her favorite facial mask wasn't there. While taking a shower, she muttered to herself, "Today, I can only wrong you to wear a cheap facial mask." Custine's shower gel was all over her body. She still smelled like cherry blossoms even after she washed herself with hot water. She put on the light blue tuxedo that she had picked out earlier, sprayed on her Miss Coco, and put on exquisite makeup. Bai Lianxin sat in front of the dressing mirror and looked at her beautiful face in the mirror. She couldn't help but smile and murmured again, "How could the heavens bear to take back such a beautiful face? I want to live. No matter what, I have to live." Her tone was very firm, as if she had already thought of a countermeasure. As for Hua Kaijin, he was in a fit of anger just now. In addition, there were two people fanning the flames in the narration, so he was naturally angry at her. But after all, they had been friends for so many years. When he calmed down, he would naturally find her good side. As Bai Lianxin was thinking, she half leaned on the soft bed elegantly. She ate the chocolate that Hua Kaijin gave her before, and a faint light flashed in her eyes. Actually, she didn't like to eat chocolate, but she was really hungry, so she just ate a few bites. Chapter 24:14. I was wrong before. Can you forgive me? Bai Lianxin, there was nothing wrong with apologizing first. She was such a prideful person. Being able to speak humbly to others was her absolute concession. She thought that Hua Kaijin would definitely step down from this stage. After all, he used to accommodate her. However, after a few minutes, her phone didn't ring at all. On one hand, Bai Lianxin was a little flustered, but on the other hand, she was a little angry. She was flustered because there was a possibility that Hua Kaijin was really ignoring her, and she was angry because no one had ever ignored her message. When she was in school, everyone spoiled her like a little princess. At the end of the world, she originally thought that everyone would fight to protect her and even fight over her. She didn't expect that not only did such a scene not appear, but she was also repeatedly bullied by lowly people like Luo Qingxin. The reason was just because she was a psychic, so she could be superior to others? Ridiculous, ridiculous, really ridiculous. After a few more minutes, Hua Kaijin still didn't reply. Bai Lianxin couldn't hold back her anxiety and sent another message to Hua Kaijin. "Don't go too far. We are friends for a long time. This is so unsightly." Bai Lianxin, since the soft approach didn't work, then she would use the hard approach. Time ticked away. Bai Lianxin held her phone and paced back and forth in the room. In fact, she was more used to her current life, using her phone in a place with a signal, wearing a sexy and beautiful dress, and leaning on a high-end soft couch. She was born to live such a life, and even at the end of the world, she still wanted to live such a life. However, Hua Kaijin didn't reply to her message. Even if danger was approaching bit by bit, and death was approaching step by step, he still didn't care about her. Sometimes people were very cold, but when they didn't have any feelings for a person, then her life and death were no longer that important. 3:30 in the morning. A large group of crows flew over the top of the villa, and the air was filled with a touch of tension. Luo Qingxun didn't sleep, lying on the bed fiddling with her portable space, and didn't forget to take out some snacks that she liked to eat. This so-called space creation ability was really good. It had a large capacity, and the classification was clear. That's all due to the system. The mechanical voice that suddenly appeared really scared her, and a ham in her hand almost fell to the ground. Then, as a reward, I will take you to see what is called despair on Earth. After replying to the system, she looked out of the window. A touch of red fog surrounded the entire villa, and even she felt that this scene was exciting. In order to cater to this atmosphere, Luo Qingxun took out a dark red cloak from her storage space. She put a large hat on her head that covered most of her face. This kind of atmosphere, this kind of feeling, really felt a little like a world of black magic, inexplicably made people feel excited. Walking up the stairs on the east side, she saw a lot of zombies along the way. They were all Phase 3 zombies. There was only a 4th grade zombie walking in front, with a faint green light above its head. Qian Xinai's grandfather had said that the ranks of zombies were in reverse order from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. As for 8th and 9th grade, black and gold. It had to be said, the evolution speed of zombies in the apocalypse far surpassed her imagination. Chapter 24:15. Luo Qingshun asked Hua Kaijin to remind everyone not to make any noise at night. Otherwise, they would have to bear the consequences. At the same time, she told the bodyguards in the 4 directions to withdraw. In front of a phase 4 zombie, even the strongest bodyguards would be like sheep sent to a tiger's den as long as they weren't superpowered people. Although she didn't have the heart to save the people from disaster, like Hua Kaijin, she had her own principles. She didn't need to make sacrifices that shouldn't be made. The phase for zombie didn't move very fast. It walked forward while taking the food that was placed in the corner. It started to chew on the heart with its bare hands. Munch, 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 munch. A strange sound spread through the entire corridor of the 3rd floor. She hid in the dark and hid her scent. She couldn't help but smile. Naturally, many people heard the sound of zombies eating hearts, but they all held their breaths in tacit agreement. Only Bai Lianxin's stomach made a rumbling sound. Her face was full of joy. He still hasn't replied to my text. So he knew that I didn't have dinner, so he went to find me something to eat. Bai Lianxin pursed her lips. She chuckled and walked towards the door with small steps. She was still fantasizing about how she would act arrogant to Hua Kaijin later. After all, she sent him 2 text messages in such an embarrassing way, but he didn't reply to any of them. She didn't know that when she heard the sound slowly approaching and suddenly opened the door, what she saw wasn't the face of a beautiful man. Instead, it was only half of his face. There were centipedes all over his face. His whole body emitted a sticky, burnt smell. Black blood kept flowing out of his mouth. At this moment, Bai Lianxin only felt a buzzing sound in her head. She didn't have any strength left in her body. Luo Qingshun put her hands in her pockets. She saw the arrogant smile on the zombie's face disappear. She heard the deafening screams. Screams! Bai Lianxin used all her strength to shout and desperately stepped back. Kacha, kacha, kacha! Some zombies smelled fresh blood, and their originally white eyes were instantly filled with blood. Don't come over here! Don't come over here! Bai Lianxin screamed madly. She held her head with both hands and said, Don't kill me! Don't kill me! Don't kill me! Her entire body was emitting a green light, which surrounded her in layers. She felt that the power in her body had become incomparably strong. Bang! She suddenly waved her right hand, and the air was filled with a faint green light. 2 of the phase, 3 zombies standing behind the phase. 4 zombies felt their heads become heavy, and their expressions showed that they were in pain. The pain made him want to kill the woman in front of him even more. He wanted to drink her blood and devour her heart. Luo Qingshun, who was standing not far away, narrowed her eyes and said, It seems to be a psychic ability. When the phase, 3 zombies bit her arm, and the pain stimulated all of her senses. Bai Lianxin tasted something sweet in her mouth, and then she spat out a mouthful of blood. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and watched the zombies tear her gorgeous light blue tuxedo into pieces. She watched as she howled among the zombies. He looked at her arm that had just been bitten. It had miraculously recovered. Chapter 24:16. Once an awakened ability user received a fatal injury, the ability genes in their body would mutate ahead of time. Perhaps at first Bai Lianxin didn't awaken her ability that quickly, but now it seemed that she was about to awaken it. When she saw the green light on her body, when she saw the zombies around her look a little afraid of her, when she saw her eyebrows knit, there were zombies falling down. She laughed, looking up to the sky and laughing so happily. Ha 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 ha! She loudly said, I am an ability user. I am also an ability user. Those people who wanted to harm her, those people who wanted to hurt her. She had finally awakened her own ability. It turned out that the heavens still loved her and cared for her. The things that those lowly people had, she could also have them, and she could use them better and more powerful than them. Luo Qingshun, do you see? Bai Lianxin didn't forget to shout, I'm also an ability user. What are you so proud of? Cough, cough. In the next second, a cold voice sounded in the air. Only seeing a golden light pass in front of her eyes The exquisite ring's faint light instantly interrupted by Lian Xin's awakened astrolabe. Space freeze. Everything around her instantly froze, except for Lian Xin. She looked at Luo Qingxun step by step walking towards her, a pair of beautiful eyes filled with a cold light. She also looked at the golden light that fell from the sky, cutting off the astrolabe around her. "What did you do?" She waved her right hand with all her strength, only to see the originally strong green light dim little by little. "I hate it when people call me by my full name." Luo Qingxun raised her chin with her right hand and said, "Especially when it's someone I hate." Lian Xin's entire body froze. She turned her face away and stared at her with wide eyes. "Where's my ability? Where's my ability? What did she do to her? Why did she feel that she was originally filled with power, but the moment she appeared, that power completely disappeared?" "You never had an ability." Luo Qingxun narrowed her cold eyes and chuckled. "Because I won't give it to you." "You." Lian Xin gritted her teeth and said, "Luo Qingxun, you can't do this, you bitch." I can also hear people scolding people. She gently touched her ear and stepped back step by step. In the next second, she quickly disappeared into the night. With a snap of her fingers, everything returned to normal. The zombies rushed toward Lian Xin crazily. She kept waving her arms, trying to use her superpower. But the pitiful thing was that her powers had been erased by Luo Qingxun. Qian Xinai's grandfather had said that when a person awakened their superpower, it was when they were at their strongest and weakest. The strong part was that the new power user was very strong, and they were very sensitive to everything. But the weak part was that as long as someone destroyed their superpower's astrolabe, that person's superpower would never awaken again. When she put away the exquisite ring, there were layers of golden and green light around it. When she put the exquisite ring on her right hand, she could feel a strange power coming to her. It was like the exquisite ring was absorbing her power. It was a very strange feeling. Is it mental power or healing? Before she could react, a deep voice entered her ears. It came from her family's black-bellied male lead, Great Qian Xinai. "I feel that big sister is more suited for mental power." There was a familiar sunny voice that sounded. It came from her family's most gentle little brother, Luo Qingmian. Chapter 24:17. Qian Xinai heard this, and his lips curled into a smile. I just wanted to see my future wife's black-bellied appearance. He loved to see her indifferent yet insufferably arrogant look, doing what she wanted to do, never caring about how others looked at her. He liked this kind of pure person, not someone who clearly had a dark heart but wanted to show a kind heart. Pretending to be in school, he had seen this kind of thing and this kind of scene enough. Even when the end of the world came, he didn't feel any pity. The world after the reshuffle was better. The survival of the fittest and the strong were kings. Cuckoo. Luo Qingmian gave 2 soft coughs. When classmate Qian says this, can you consider that I'm still here? She didn't like the feeling of her big sister being stolen. But this person dared to say this kind of thing. 2. Over. Split. Over. Qian Xinai looked over and seriously looked into Luo Qingmian's eyes. His lips curled into a smile as he said, "Didn't you say you can't see?" "Wah. How could there be this kind of person?" "I can't see, but I can hear, all right?" Luo Qingmian didn't forget to angrily pull on Luo Qingxun's hand as she said in a spoiled voice, "Big sister, he's bullying me." Hey. Qian Xinai quickly stopped her and added, "Don't complain." Luo Qingmian gave a proud snort, making Qian Xinai, who had been silent the entire time, feel helpless. It had to be said, Luo Qingxun quite liked the interaction between them. He always felt that they were competing with each other on the surface, but they actually admired each other. There was also the most important point. In the apocalypse, they were working hard to protect the same person. And that person was that important to them. This was the so-called resonance because of a person. While they were playing not far from the master bedroom on the 3rd floor, the woman in the room had already been swallowed by zombies. Among the zombies, Luo Qingxun saw by Lian Xin's face of despair. Her eyes were already filled with blood, filled with endless hatred. It wasn't difficult to hate someone, but it wasn't easy to hate someone to the bone and not let them go even if they went to hell. The layers of dark clouds in the dark night sky slowly dissipated, and what came into view was no longer the crescent moon hanging upside down in the sky. Instead, it was a bright red full moon. Qian Sinai, standing beside him, narrowed his eyes and slightly knit his brows. It seemed that something big was about to happen. His cold eyes narrowed as an extremely cold smile appeared on his face. "Looks like we can level up." As soon as he finished speaking, he leaped into the air and charged toward the master bedroom. Before Luo Qingshun could react, Luo Qingmian had already followed Qian Sinai. The moment the two of them jumped into the room, they even looked at each other, full of love. What was going on? Since when did they no longer need her to convey their thoughts through their eyes? She stood there and laughed dryly. In the next second, she took out her phoenix dance sword from her portable space and started killing the zombies. When she saw Bai Lianxin again, she was no longer a human. That light blue tuxedo was already dyed in blood, and her white skin was covered in dark blood. Without her flesh, one could see her bones. But the most terrifying part wasn't here, but rather where her heart was. It was a hole left behind by a fourth-grade zombie, and the blood vessels connected to her heart were still flowing. Chapter 24:18. Xiao 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 xiao. There was a strange sound that came from the air. Bai Lianxin's body was covered in a yellow light that entered her brain layer by layer. With a ding sound, Bai Lianxin, who had her head down like a puppet, suddenly looked up. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her purple lips formed an arc. Her smile was a crazy smile. This smile made Luo Qingxun feel that she wasn't completely dead, she was still conscious. Who cares if she's a human or a zombie? Qian Sinai narrowed his cold eyes as a chill appeared in his deep eyes. Let's kill her first. As soon as his voice fell, he charged into the zombie crowd. Black blood splashed onto his black shirt, and he was like a knight in the night. There was only killing in his eyes. Luo Qingmian looked at her white shirt and slightly knit her brows, but she didn't hesitate as she charged into the zombie crowd with Qian Sinai. Luo Qingshun gave a cold laugh. The phoenix dance sword's hilt was filled with heat, as if it couldn't wait to join in the slaughter. As the zombies fell one by one, there were green energy nuclei floating in the air. This battle was gradually coming to an end, until the three of them worked together to kill the fourth-order zombie, and the green nuclei appeared in the air. They thought the slaughter was over. But they didn't know that they had forgotten about Bai Lianxin, who was covered in a dark yellow light. Fifth-order zombie. Qian Sinai knit his brows as his eyes became deep. It seemed like her ability had been blocked by an external force when evolving, and she had been surrounded by zombies, turning from a human into a zombie. But the energy nuclei in her body hadn't completely disappeared, and under the influence of the zombie poison, it had turned into zombie power. She had become a fifth-order zombie that had evolved in this world. She's finally proud of herself. Luo Qingshun looked at the wrinkled and ugly Bai Lianxin in front of her and said with a cold laugh, "It's a pity she won't be proud for long." As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Lianxin, who had turned into a zombie, gave a roar. She seemed to be able to understand Luo Qingshun's words. She roared to express her anger. "It's better to be cautious." Qian Sinai took a step forward. His beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent as he softly said, "It's a fifth-order zombie after all. When she was a human, she was defeated by me. Now, she's a zombie that can only rely on crystal nuclei to survive." Luo Qingshun slowly raised her phoenix dance sword and sneered. "She doesn't even have the qualifications to touch the corner of my clothes." The fiery red cloak was blown up by a gust of wind, and the sword tassel on the phoenix dance sword swayed slightly. At this moment, as she looked at Bai Lianxin, she couldn't help but recall the grudges and hatred between her and Bai Lianxin. From the original host to her, no matter what happened, no matter who it was, he had to admit that she deserved to die. He absolutely deserved to die. Some of my big sister hates. I'll take care of it for her. Luo Qingmian charged forward without any hesitation, attacking Bai Lianxin. But in the next second, a few extremely strong golden lights flashed before his eyes. The intense golden lights looked extremely strange. There was a strong aura around her, and this aura was very familiar. She blocked the golden light with her hand and shouted to Qian Si Nai beside her. Armored zombie? Chapter 24:19. 3 seconds later, the light disappeared and the surroundings fell into a deathly silence. Luo Qingshun suddenly looked up, and other than the crystal nuclei floating in the air, there was nothing else in front of her. There was no ninth order zombie, no Balian Xin, and no Luo Qing Mian. Mian Mian. Luo Qingshun called out in surprise as her brows trembled. What is going on? What is going on? At that moment, her heart was filled with panic, to the point that she couldn't calm down and think about what was happening. Qing, Qing. Qian Sinai's beautiful voice made her come back to her senses. Her palms were covered in cold sweat. She bit her lips and said, I can understand why they took Bai Lianxin away. After all, she is a mutant zombie who is about to awaken. The energy in her body must be very special. But why did they take my little brother? Luo Qingmian wasn't a particularly strong power user. Even if he had a bit of foresight, many things would change based on the subjective feelings of humans. The butterfly effect was like this. Adding in the fact that the pace of the apocalypse was very fast, this power was very weak at this stage. Only in the later stages of the apocalypse would it become stronger. Those people hidden in the darkness, why did they take her little brother? We'll go pick up your mother first, and then go back to the Qian Manor to discuss this. Qian Si Nai gave his plan. Although the zombies here had been taken care of by them, a city didn't have a large-scale government figure to set up a large-scale safe zone. There would be more and more zombies, and their levels would only increase. They didn't know how many power users had awakened here, but they knew that this place would definitely fall. Luo Qingshun was stunned. She closed her eyes and gave a long sigh as she said with tightly knit brows, I don't know how to face my mother. Her younger brother was no longer a burden. He had the clairvoyance eye and could foresee the future. But even like this, she couldn't protect her little brother. This time, she had been careless. Don't worry too much. Qian Sinai narrowed his eyes and said, the nucleus of a dead ninth order zombie would automatically enter Qing Mian's body. That means he must have a special ability. Special ability? Luo Qingshun's eyes were full of doubt. Her eyebrows moved slightly as she asked, what do you mean? It's hard to say. Qian Sinai pointed at the glowing exquisite ring on her right hand. Perhaps the Luo family's people are all three ability users, mental or healing. Spirit. Luo Qingshun glanced at the ring and sighed again. Originally, awakening as a triple elemental ability user should have been a particularly joyous thing. But right now, she couldn't feel happy at all. Why did these people want to take her brother away? This question really puzzled her, no matter how hard she thought about it. But one thing was for sure, it had something to do with the rank 9 zombie nucleus entering his body. The next morning, Luo Qingshun originally planned on saying goodbye to Hua Kaijin. She didn't expect him to decide to help them save Luo Qingmian. I don't have any friends in the apocalypse, Luo Qingmian said with a bitter smile. Although you might not have treated me as a friend, at least you were honest enough. It had to be said, people who experience betrayal would grow faster. Chapter 24:20. The other side should be very strong. She narrowed her eyes as a faint Li Guang flashed in her clear eyes. You're a young master with an awakened ability. You can clearly live well in the apocalypse. Why do you want to do such a dangerous thing? Her question was very direct. After all, they were just friends who met by chance for Hua Kaijin. What's the point? Hua Kaijin gave a helpless smile. The apocalypse is coming. The most exciting thing for me was fighting the ninth order zombies with you guys that day. The experience of meeting by chance is sometimes unforgettable. You're not a savior anymore? Luo Qingshun gave a soft laugh. Her impression of Hua Kaijin gradually came back. He let out a long sigh. I think that since we're in the apocalypse, everyone has a place to return to. I can help one person, but I can't help a second one. Are you willing to let me go with you? He looked at Luo Qingshun and then at Qian Sinai. The Li Guang in his eyes was very sincere. Luo Qingshun reached out her hand. Welcome to join. Thank you for saving my brother. After picking up his mother from the hotel, Qian Sinai brought Luo Qingshun, Hua Kaijin, Mujin, and the baby to the Qian Manor. This was an absolute safe zone, one that was established 3 months before the apocalypse. Grandpa should be looking for a safe zone somewhere else. I'll take you to your room first, and then we'll meet at the CNC Center. Ching Ching, why are we here? Mother Luo looked at Luo Qingchun nervously. Shouldn't we go save Mian? Mom, you first. Auntie, don't worry. Qian Sinai saw that Luo Qingchun was a bit anxious and interrupted her. The CNC Center has special equipment that can quickly find Qing Mian's location. That's right, Auntie. Huakai Jin saw the situation and said, moreover, there's so many zombies outside. It's not good for us to search without any clues. Luo Qingchun rubbed her temples and gave them a nod as she softly said, thank you. When Luo Qingyan was captured, she was already very anxious. Along the way, her mother kept nagging in her ears, making it impossible for her to calm down and analyze the whole thing. Fortunately, someone had already silently explained for her, so her thoughts were not in a mess. After sending Luo Mujin, and the baby to the room, Luo Qingchun went to the data center to meet Qian Sinai. The Qian Mansion's data center was quite powerful. He could use a special system to detect the location of metahumans. Look at this picture. Qian Sinai switched the screen to the world map and said, so far, there are a total of 81 power users who have awakened in the country. It seems that there are still very few metahumans. Luo Qingchun frowned and said, some cities didn't even have a single ability user and fell directly. Qian Sinai heard this and explained, it's also possible that the power user was bitten to death by zombies before they could awaken their powers. This kind of situation was very likely to happen. Zombies evolve very quickly, and paranormals could only awaken in a certain environment or at a certain time. Yes, keep talking. I can roughly sense the existence of dual ability users. Qian Sinai said as he pressed the green button. There is a dual ability user in Fragrant Mountain, and it's a male. We're in the south. It's not easy to go to Fragrant Mountain now. Huakai Jin thought for a bit, unless... Chapter 24-21. Luo Qingchun never thought that in the apocalypse of 2155, they would give up the thrill of driving a Porsche on the highway and use a yacht to travel on the water. But it was a good thing that it was Qian Sinai's personal yacht, so it was quite fast. It took an hour and a half to go from the Qian Manor in the south to the fragrant hills in the north. On the way, Luo Qingchun could truly feel the changes of the apocalypse. The river polluted by blood was pitch black, and there was nothing to see. There were no fresh fish in the water. Only a few mutated fish could be seen. They had sharp fangs and densely packed thorns all over their bodies. They were extremely aggressive. If it wasn't for the fact that they were psychics, normal people wouldn't be able to survive the attacks of these mutated creatures. Of course, what made her feel that the biggest change was the silence around her. It was a deathly silence, as if there was no one else in this world other than her. Don't worry. Qian Sinai saw her frown and comforted her. The CNC Center can still clearly sense Qing Mian's life. He shouldn't be in any danger for now. Luo Qingchun narrowed her eyes and said with a firm light, I will definitely save him. After thinking for a long time, her emotions gradually stabilized. Even if it was someone with a ninth-order zombie, they must have known that the apocalypse was coming. This so-called master couldn't be a zombie, so it could only be a human or a psychic like her who awakened early. She didn't know what method he used to train those ninth-order zombies and gave them orders through special equipment. When they met for the first time, she vaguely heard the ninth-order zombie in armor say something. Found it. From this, it was obvious that this expert wanted to find a key person in the post-apocalyptic world. This person could either help him reach the peak of the apocalypse, and he needed their help, or this person could destroy everything he had and he wanted to get rid of them. A person who could control ninth-order zombies was already standing at the peak of the apocalypse. This master's current position was like the president of the world. No one could shake his position. Then it could only be the latter. As the saying goes, the devil is 10. The theory of world balance was applicable no matter which world it was. With the appearance of zombies, there would be psychics. Zombies could evolve and psychics could also evolve. Then for a person who could have such power in the early stages of the apocalypse, there would definitely be someone insignificant who could destroy everything. That person was her little brother, Luo Qingmian. After getting off the yacht, they reached the foot of Fragrant Hills. This mountain was very famous in the city. Many people would climb the mountain to exercise on weekends. There was a temple at the top of the mountain called the Yong and Temple. Other than this temple, there was no other place on Fragrant Mountain that could hide Luo Qingmian. There's only one path. Qian Sinai turned on the tablet and confirmed their position while saying, Qingmian's position is still here. If we go up from here, even if they want to run, they can only meet us. Hua Kai-jin, who was standing on the other side, heard this and said, Your family is really amazing. Under such circumstances, not only do you have the internet, but the CNC Center can also connect to the tablet. Chapter 24-22. Admirable, admirable. Hua Kai-jin said with a helpless smile, You hit it too well in school. I really didn't notice it at all. The more inconspicuous I was, the faster I could gather resources. Qian Sinai softly said, It's a pity that I couldn't protect Qingmian. Luo Qingshan heard this and gave a sigh while climbing. The one to blame is me. The so-called 3-ability users are just this. Not to mention that she wasn't just a 3-ability user. Her own special ability was much more powerful than the special ability given to her by this world. It was a pity. Thinking of this, Luo Qingshan suddenly thought a question. She turned to Qian Sinai and said, Aren't you a dual ability user? What's your other ability? Qian Sinai never thought that Luo Qingshan would suddenly ask this question. Moreover, he never told anyone that he was a dual ability user. So how did this girl know? How did you know? Qian Sinai narrowed his eyes and looked over her. Luo Qingshan was surprised. Could it be that she shouldn't know? Wasn't this the information the system gave her? Moreover, the great male lead. Wasn't it normal for him to have dual abilities? I guessed it. Luo Qingshan gave a serious nod. Qian Manor is that powerful. It's normal for him to be a dual ability user. Power users don't depend on strength or status. Qian Sinai said with a soft laugh. It depends on pure luck. Luo Qingshan fell into deep thought. Thinking about it, if only those with amazing bones and fate could become power users. While Yinxin was trash, it was impossible for her to awaken any abilities, not to mention being a dual ability user. All right, Qian Sinai looked at her in a doubtful manner. Actually, the second ability I awakened is useless. It's a useless ability. What is it? When there's a chance to use it, I'll show it to you. Climbing from the foot of Fragrant Hill to the top of Fragrant Hill took them a whole hour, but they didn't encounter any zombies on the way. However, this mountain was originally the only path, but halfway through, it was blocked by a large rock and suddenly became impassable. They even had to take a big detour to reach the top of Fragrant Mountain. Along the way, from the data from Qian Sinai's tablet, it could be seen that Luo Qingmian was at this place. Her position hadn't changed at all, but for some reason, Luo Qingshan felt inexplicably uneasy. This feeling of uneasiness spread from the depths of her heart, slowly affecting her emotions. It wasn't until they reached the top of Fragrant Mountain that Luo Qingshan's heart completely sank. The location shown on the tablet was still there, but there was only a stone placed there. There was nothing else. How is this possible? Qian Sinai tightly knit his brows. It's impossible for Grandpa's CNC Center to make such a big mistake. Hua Kai-jin said, Think about it carefully. Did you make a mistake that caused a problem with the location? He looked at Luo Qingshan with her hands in her pockets and tightly knit brows, feeling inexplicably worried for her. However, Qian Sinai decisively shook his head. It's impossible for there to be a mistake. I know how important Luo Qingmian is to her, so I checked it many times. At this moment, Luo Qingshan fell into deep thought. The appearance of the 9th grade zombie, the choice of crystal nucleus, Luo Qingmian's disappearance, the location was wrong. Chapter 24-23. Did you think of something? Qian Sinai saw her suddenly look up, and there was a faint sparkle in his clear Li Guang eyes. I did think of a few things, but they're all random guesses. Luo Qingshun looked at him and asked, when you were in the modern world, other than your grandfather telling you that the apocalypse would come in 3 months, did he tell you anything else? Qian Sinai clearly never thought that she would ask this question. The more important thing was that her tone was a bit strange when she asked this question. It was like she was probing him, and this kind of probing made him feel very uncomfortable. Other than some information about the evolution of zombies and the layout of the safe zone, there was nothing else. Qian Sinai honestly looked at her while seriously saying, if you have any guesses, you can tell me and we can solve them together. Wild guesses aren't worth mentioning. Luo Qingshun's eyes trembled as she said, let's first. Big sister, save me, save me. Mian Mian. Before her voice fell, Luo Qing Mian's cry for help sounded in her ears. It wasn't a cry for help from nearby, rather it was from far away. Luo Qing Mian was using their sibling telepathy to send her a cry for help. Qing Qing. Qian Sinai reached out his hands and placed them on her trembling shoulders. He looked at her and said, watch me calm down and then, trust me. Can I trust you? Luo Qingshun closed her eyes and looked into his deep as ink eyes. She said that she wouldn't trust anyone in the apocalypse. She said that she would protect her little brother and mother in this world. But the man standing in front of her was the only thing that kept her going in the 38 worlds. With the 90% affection in her hands, she should trust him. She had to trust him. I suspect that the one who took my little brother. She took a deep breath and bit her lip before saying, it's your grandfather. What? How is that possible? Qian Sinai and Hua Kai-jin revealed looks of disbelief. In their eyes, the old man who could predict the apocalypse, the divine mathematician who studied the stars so thoroughly, was like a god. At the very least, he had the image of a savior. Now, Luo Qingshun not only wanted to overturn his tall image of a savior, but also give him the title of a great villain. No one could accept this, not to mention Qian Sinai, who had always believed in his grandfather. That's why I said that this is just my wild guess, but I still ask you to believe in my guess. Luo Qingshun sighed and said, because at least until now, I haven't guessed wrong. Why are you suspecting my grandfather? Could it be that you didn't find Qing Mian at the location of the tablet? Qian Sinai quickly calmed down and analyzed the entire situation with her. Of course not. Luo Qingshun shook her head and said, don't you think that we are trapped in an endless loop? Since your grandfather already knew that the apocalypse would come, he must have known that a city would fall. Luo Qingshun paused as he looked deeply at Qian Sinai. His brows tightly knit like he was thinking of something, but he revealed a helpless smile 3 seconds later. Luo Qingshun knew that Qian Sinai understood what she meant after she analyzed the situation. Don't speak in riddles, I might not have understood. Hua Kai-jin, standing on the side, was a bit anxious. Chapter 24-24. Qing Qing's meaning is, since my grandfather knew that a city would fall, why did he build such a large system in a city? This is too risky. Qian Sinai revealed a bitter smile. Unless. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes as a faint glow appeared in her eyes. Unless he spent that much money to buy the equipment and built this large system in the Qian manor to find a single person. Why did he want to find a single person? Before she could explain, Hua Kai-jin asked a second question. Because that person could affect his plan. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes as she guessed. Other than me, Qian Sinai, and his grandfather, no one in this world knew about the apocalypse ahead of time. But what if the apocalypse wasn't inevitable? You think that grandfather wanted the apocalypse to come, right? Qian Sinai's deep eyes dimmed layer by layer. Actually, Luo Qingshun knew that this feeling wasn't good since it was the grandfather he worshipped. It was like suddenly finding that the savior he had always believed in had become the one to shuffle the cards in the world. No matter what the reason was, he would feel very bad. Yes, Luo Qingshun said with a nod, and Mian Mian might be the one to stop him. There weren't many clues, and she wasn't certain, but Qian CZ wasn't as simple as she imagined. At least when she first met him, she could feel the deep sense of revenge in his eyes. For what reason, she didn't know. But now that the apocalypse has formed, even if Qing Mian can absorb the power of a ninth spiritual level nucleus, grandfather should cherish her. I hope that he cherishes her, so my little brother wouldn't be in danger for now. Luo Qingshun tightly knit her brows, but it doesn't seem like that. While they were guessing and analyzing, they quickly walked to the yacht and headed back. Although everything here was just her guesses, it wasn't like she didn't have any evidence. At certain times, there would be strange scenes that flashed in front of her. The scenes flashed very quickly, but there was Qian CZ each time. At first she thought that Qian Xuanzi might be in danger and planned to discuss it with Qian Sinai, but she gradually found out later. That white-haired and white-bearded old man always stood at a high position. When they returned to the Qian residence, nothing had changed. It was just like when they left. But Qian Sinai found a small change. For example, he had only closed the door of the CNC center halfway, but the door in front of him was completely closed. Such a trivial matter made him feel an inexplicable sense of fear in such an atmosphere. He was afraid that the truth would come. At least before the stone hammer fell, he still believed that his grandfather was a good person. Someone came. Qian Sinai looked at Luo Qingshun with a sparkle in his deep eyes. Who else knows? No. He interrupted her question and said indifferently, "My grandfather is back." Luo Qingshun waved her right hand and took out the Phoenix Dance sword from her storage space. "Sorry, Sinai. I want to save my little brother. If all of this is different from what I suspected, I apologize to you. But if it's the same, then you and I are on opposite sides. Do you understand?" As soon as his voice fell, the air was silent. Chapter 24-25. That's right. She didn't know. She didn't know which side Qian Sinai would stand on. But she knew that throwing this question to Qian Sinai was a very cruel thing to do. They hadn't known each other for long, but they had experienced many life and death situations, so they had a tacit understanding. This tacit understanding allowed him to keep giving her affection. It was like they were people living in the same world. Whether the other side was saving the world or being heartless, they only had admiration for each other. "I don't want you to stand on the side." Luo Qingshun looked up and said, "I just want to save my little brother. If it really is as I guessed, I can make sure my little brother doesn't become a hindrance to your grandfather." She wasn't a saint. She didn't need to do anything for the world. Everyone had their own destiny, and everything was reincarnated. This was how it should be. No matter what Luo Xuanzi wanted to do, as long as it didn't hurt her family, she didn't care about it. Qing. Qian Sinai softly called her name. He raised his right hand and patted her head. "Being able to meet you, it really is a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 100%. Huakai Jean, standing on the side, tactfully looked away as she felt a bit of envy in her heart. Pure envy. She felt that in the apocalypse, it wasn't easy to find someone who could give everything for each other. Dee-doo, warning. While waiting for Luo Qingshun's response to this confession, the white light above the CNC center suddenly turned red and an ear-piercing alarm rang out. "What is this situation?" Huakai Jean asked in a nervous voice. "Could it be that your grandfather really—" "This is the alarm of enemies entering the Qian Manor. Let's go out and take a look." Walking out of the CNC center, they came to the large star disk. This was a very large open space in the Qian Manor. Luo Qingshun had a deep impression of it the first time she came here. The entire open space was around 1,000 square meters, and there was nothing around it. There was just a giant disk in the middle. The disk was the color of the stars, and it resonated with the dark red full moon in the sky, forming strange star orbits on the ground. Heavens! This was the first time Huakai Jean saw such a spectacle and couldn't help but cry out in surprise. "Lower your voice." Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and said, "I feel that this place is somewhat strange." The polar air pressure surrounded her, making it hard for her to breathe. The first time she had this feeling was when she fell into the primal chaos space. The faint light from the bronze mirror made her feel strange. This was the second time she felt this strange feeling. It was as if this large disk was also a vessel that traveled through time and space. What's terrifying is that I've never seen this scene before. Qianxi Nai's slender fingers trembled, and his brows tightly knit as his heart became more and more unsettled. He hoped that everything was just a misunderstanding. He hoped that even if his grandfather wasn't a saint who saved the world, he wasn't an evil person either. But in the next second, all the faith in his heart completely collapsed the moment Qian Swansea appeared. "Xiaonai, you guys are back." A strong voice sounded. Although it was a bit old, it gave people a feeling that it was full of vitality. Luo Qingshun looked over, and a chivalrous old man slowly walked over to them. He was wearing a white robe, and his eyes were bright. But in those eyes, there was a depth that people couldn't see through. Chapter 24-26. Actually, the moment he looked at her, he knew that he had changed. Smiles could deceive people, expressions could deceive people, but in the Qian manner, eyes couldn't deceive people. This was because once a person did something unspeakable, his eyes would become dim. This was what his grandfather told him 10 years ago. "Xiaonai, you're already this big in the blink of an eye." Qian Ba Zi crossed his hands and slowly walked to the center of the disk to look at the dark red moon in the sky. "I still remember when I brought you to this world. You were only 3 months old." At this moment, everyone was stunned. Even the always calm Luo Qingshun took a cold breath from Luo Ba Zi's words. What was he saying? Could it be that Qianxi Nai wasn't from this world? Did they come from another world? "Grandfather, is it really you?" Qianxi Nai's calm voice trembled slightly. Luo Qingshun could hear that he was a bit nervous. "What's done is done. Grandfather won't deny it in front of you." Qian Ba Zi stroked his beard and said, "Before this, can you listen to Grandfather talk about the past?" Qianxi Nai didn't reply. Rather, he looked at Luo Qingshun. Luo Qingshun's eyes trembled as she slowly let go of her tightly clenched fist. "Please speak." She was almost 100% certain that Luo Qingmian was in Qian Ba Zi's hands and was in a very dangerous situation. But right now, she couldn't do anything other than listen to him talk about the past. "We're actually not from this world. We're from a world 200 years later, which is the year 2355. Qian Ba Zi said with a sigh. "It's been a long time without anyone noticing." Over the next half an hour, Qian Ba Zi explained the ins and outs of this matter. The plot was so full of ups and downs that people couldn't think normally, but was certain that Luo Qingshun guessed half right. Using a wild guess, she guessed half right. 200 years later, the world would experience a star war. External invaders would open a wormhole in the North Pole and invade the Earth through the wormhole. At that time, the humans on Earth didn't have any ability to resist the attacks of the aliens and were forced to retreat. In less than 3 days, the entire Earth was almost completely occupied by aliens, except for City A. At that time, the Qian residence was the last line of defense to protect the people of Earth. This was because they used the astrolabe to calculate the weakness of the aliens step by step, as well as when they were the weakest. But food became the biggest problem. They were guarding a city. Although the aliens couldn't come in, a city's resources were limited and the food was decreasing bit by bit. Even if Qianxi Nai's parents desperately fought for resources, everyone still fell into a situation where they had nothing to eat. The bad side of human nature emerged bit by bit. Those who could live in City A were either rich or noble, and they were even more afraid of death. Without food, they would eventually die. Thus, they awakened and completed a deal with the aliens. At that time, the aliens were still having a headache about how to deal with the Qian couple who knew their weakness. However, it just so happened that there was someone who could help them deal with this couple. Naturally, they were willing to make this deal. A few days later, some of the people who stayed in City A awakened and kidnapped the Qian couple who were supposed to protect them to the aliens. The aliens hated them for killing their brothers and letting them die a painful death. At this point, Earth had completely fallen. Chapter 24-27. Doesn't that prove that this world didn't have the apocalypse and didn't have zombies? Hua Qingjin thought about it and found that she had goosebumps all over her body. It really was terrifying when she thought about it. Yes, Qianjin stood with his hands behind his back as he looked at the blood-red moon in the sky. I personally created the apocalypse. At that time, when he went through the space orbit, he also took the aliens' DNA and the virus that existed in that world. After 18 years of research, he finally obtained the key to opening the door. Not only that, he had already created the Ninth Order zombies at the beginning of the apocalypse, allowing the apocalypse to move a bit faster, a bit faster, a bit faster. This way, the Earth would become stronger and they would have enough power to deal with the aliens 200 years later. But why did you capture my little brother? Luo Qingshun took a deep breath and asked the question she was most confused about. She could understand this grand transmigration, and Qianjin desperately wanted to create the apocalypse 200 years ago to deal with the future aliens. She could also understand. But she didn't understand why he wanted to capture her little brother. A city has already fallen. Qianjin calmly said, "Other than you guys, even everyone in Ispiter Castle is dead. The safe zone I set up is the door to hell. But your little brother is someone who can close this door." The apocalypse was the apocalypse. She didn't even have time to kill Baidashan before he was killed by the zombies. The cruelty here was more terrifying than she imagined. At this moment, she finally understood why Qianjin wanted to capture Luo Qingmian. But whether your little brother can close this door or not, I have a final say. Luo Qingchen's cold eyes narrowed. I like Qian Sinai. I can stand with him and do what he wants. So, my little brother won't be a stumbling block for you. Qian Sinai clearly didn't think that Luo Qingshun would say the word like to him in this kind of situation. A warm current inexplicably welled up in his heart and slowly swam around his heart. Luo Qingshun's clear eyes stared seriously at Qian Swanzi in front of her. If she had experienced this kind of reincarnation, she might have done the same thing as Qian Swanzi. The only difference was that she would not harm the lives of innocent people. He could choose not to save people, but he could not kill people. Otherwise, the kind people in this world would be too lonely. No, Qian Swanzi shook his head. Our words don't count. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his right hand. 8 phase. 9 zombies stood in a row behind him. In front of the phase, 9 zombies was by Lianxin, who had become a phase 5 zombie, and her younger brother. That blood-soaked little brother. Strange round steel nails were embedded into his skin all over his body. His blood seemed to have stopped flowing, and his originally clean and beautiful eyes were tightly shut. Xiao. In the next second, Luo Qingshun pulled out her Phoenix Dance sword from her storage space without saying a word. Her eyes were filled with flames as she looked at Qian Swanzi. I want to take back everything I just said. No one could do this to her little brother. No one in this world could hurt Luo Qingmian like this. She said that she would protect her little brother. Even if she had to use all her abilities, she would protect her little brother. No one could hurt him. Chapter 24-28. Because he is alive, all the crystal nuclei of the high-level zombies will enter his body. No matter who killed the zombies, they will all enter his body. Qian Suzi raised his eyebrows and said, "This way, this world will never grow. When the crystal nuclei in his body reach a certain level, the apocalypse will end." She heard Qian Bazi's words, but she didn't want to say anything else. She raised her Phoenix Dance sword and attacked the old man. There was a killing intent in the air as the 9th level zombies behind her entered an absolute attack state. Luo Qingshun narrowed her cold eyes, and the exquisite ring flew across the dark red sky, forming a dazzling light. Kill her. With a single word from Qian Bazi, the 9th level zombies all charged at her. Space freeze. After that, everything around her froze. She used her Phoenix Dance sword to kill 3 zombies as quickly as possible and took their crystal nuclei. Because these zombies were too powerful, even in the scene where time and space were frozen, she could not kill them all. There wasn't enough time. When the space freeze was about to be released, Luo Qingshun hugged her little brother and brought him to her side. Instantly, everything returned to normal. This time, The one who revealed a surprised expression wasn't Luo Qingxin, but rather the culprit Qianbazi. The 3 golden nuclei floating in the air were the zombies she killed, but she wasn't the owner of these nuclei. After a few seconds, the nuclei flew towards Luo Qingmian one by one, entering his body with a xiao. How is this possible? How is this possible? Qianbazi looked at Luo Qingxun in disbelief. How could she kill 3 ninth-level zombies in a second? How did she do it? The old man, who was originally confident, revealed a shocked expression on his face. There is actually such a strong person in this world. Why didn't this person appear 200 years later? That way, their son and daughter-in-law wouldn't be killed. You know space freeze, right? Qian Xinai's deep eyes slowly looked at him as a faint glow appeared in his eyes. Under the reflection of the stars' orbits, the glimmering light looked so beautiful. What? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Qian Suzi shook his head with all his might. This kind of legendary ability will not appear in the apocalypse. It's impossible to awaken such an arcana. Of course not. Luo Qingxun handed her brother to Hua Kai-jin and coldly looked up. But when did I say that I came from this world? Who are you? Who are you? Qian Swanzi almost went crazy. That was the rank 9 zombie he was proud of, but it died in a second. No one would be able to accept this. I'm a bug in this game. Lu Qingcheng glanced at Qian Swanzi and said, You can't kill my brother. You have already lost. No, I will not lose. Qian Swanzi laughed maniacally. This world must become stronger. It must change. Humans shouldn't exist. Not a single one of them should exist. So what if they were espers? They needed stamina. If they fought for a long time, they would all die. Only zombies are enough to deal with the aliens 200 years later. 200 years later? Lu Qingchun narrowed her cold eyes. What does that have to do with me? Perhaps she was hurting Qian Xinai and his parents by saying this, but she had to say it. Chapter 24-29. Qian CZ looked at Qian Xinai with a pair of bright eyes. No, my goal hasn't been achieved. In his eyes, as long as there were humans in this world, he hadn't achieved his goal. The selfishness, cowardice, ignorance, and stupidity of humans reminded him that those people weren't worthy of living in this world. So, Hua Kai-jin tightly knit her brows as she looked at him. You want to kill everyone here? No, not kill. Qian CZ shook his head with deep meaning. I just want to turn them into zombies. Only zombies could be controlled by him. Those that didn't need to eat or drink, but had endless power were worthy of living in this world. You're crazy. Hua Kai-jin looked at Luo Qingmian, who was covered in blood. Even with 3 ninth-level nuclei, she couldn't open her eyes. She pointed at Qian CZ. We are power users. We are born to fight against zombies and restrain each other. According to what you said, we aren't enemies with you. You're wrong. Qian CZ gave a silly laugh. You are the most terrifying creatures in this world. Humans are evil, but they are weak. But you are different. You have powerful strength, but you don't have a loyal heart. This was a reason why he couldn't let power users take over this world, not to mention that Luo Qingmian was a power user with cheats. You're right. We don't have a loyal heart. Luo Qingxun narrowed her cold eyes as she looked at Qian CZ in front of her. There was a flash of killing intent in her eyes as she said, But why should we have a loyal heart to you? Perhaps in the beginning, she thought that as long as this old man didn't forcefully take her little brother's life. If that was the case, she could turn a blind eye to everything that he was doing. But this old antique's thoughts were filled with hatred, and he had lost all his humanity. Since it was like this, there was nothing to say. Why, ha 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 ha. Since you're asking me why, Qian Swanzi laughed and said, Because I am the one who rules this world. Only I can fight against the future aliens. Uncle. Luo Qingxun interrupted Qian Swanzi's fantasy in the next second and sneered. First, you have to live for 200 years. An ordinary person actually dared to dream that he could live for 200 years and change the fate of the Qian couple, joining hand with a group of zombies to fight against the aliens. What wishful thinking. As his voice fell, The surroundings seemed to have fallen into a deathly silence. With 2 claps, Chien Swazi actually clapped his hands for her. That's why your brother had to die. His seemingly kind eyes suddenly turned deep at this moment, and within those deep eyes, there was an unknown ruthlessness. That's why I want to bring my zombie army back to 200 years in the future and open the space-time key to the orbit of the stars. He looked up coldly at the dying Luo Qingmian and said, "This is your little brother's energy core." When Chien Swazi finally said all the key points of the matter, the people present then understood that everything he said before was just a prelude. What absorbing the energy core, what changing the world, what organizing the apocalypse. These were just insignificant reasons. Chien Swazi's real purpose was to take the space-time train back to 200 years in the future. Chapter 24:30. The person I protect, if I don't die, he won't die. Luo Qingshun pulled out the exquisite ring on her right hand and slammed it to the ground. A dazzling golden light surrounded them layer by layer. Her ice-cold eyes did not have a trace of warmth as she looked at Chien Swazi and said, "You can bring your zombie army and charge as you wish. If I take a step back, consider it my loss." At this moment, his heart was already burning with flames. This kind of Chien Swazi became unbearable in her eyes. In order to achieve his goals, he would do anything. This was no different from the humans who gave the Chien family couple to aliens in order to survive 200 years later. It had to be said, this was the difference between her and him. At least, she would never hurt innocent people to achieve her goals. Just like when she first came to the apocalypse and met those people in the supermarket. Even if they didn't care about what they said, even if they liked to comment on her from the moral high ground. But in the end, she still took them out of the supermarket. But Chien Swazi was different. In order to achieve his goals, he didn't hesitate to use his ability to hit Luo Qingmian's bones, making him unable to use his ability. She couldn't accept it and couldn't let it go. "You won't win." Chien Swazi narrowed his eyes with a faint smile. There are almost no ability users on this earth. The so-called safe zone I set up is to kill ability users, not to protect humans. After all, humans deserve to die. Enough. There was a cold and helpless roar. Chien Sinai's deep eyes were dim. It was too dark, and Luo Qingshun couldn't see the expression on his face. She only knew that the surrounding temperature was dropping bit by bit before he tightly grabbed her hand. "I will stop you," he firmly said, "because I want to protect her and the people she protects." "Shall I?" Chien Swazi forcefully tapped the golden cane in his hand as he looked at him and said, "What nonsense are you saying? Your grandfather is protecting the Chien Manor, protecting your parents." It was probably when Chien Swazi said this that Luo Qingshun truly understood what Chien Sinai was betraying if he stood on her side. His family, his grandfather, his parents, some people's contributions were always kept in their hearts. When the pair of starry eyes looked up again, he already had an answer in his heart. "I remember when I was young, you told me that as a prophet who observes the heavens, there is one thing I must know." His gaze was deep as he looked at Chien Swazi and said word by word, "That is, everyone in this world has their own fate. Even if we know, we cannot change it." How does this conflict with what I'm doing now? Chien Swazi clenched his fist and said, "Your parents shouldn't have died. If it weren't for those selfish and despicable humans, they definitely wouldn't have died." "Yes, they won't die." Chien Sinai's beautiful eyes had a faint glow as he said, "But everything you're doing now is changing the fate of everyone in this world. In order to resist the invasion of aliens, you let them feel the arrival of the end of the world 200 years earlier." "Shut up." Chien Swazi became more and more excited. He almost couldn't control the obsession in his heart as he roared, "The things I've already decided can't be changed. Shao Nai, think clearly. We want to save your parents." Chapter 24:31. From the first time they fought a 9th-grade zombie, he told her that he would protect her. There were some people who were just admiring at first glance, but when they met again, there was an indescribable longing. Liking someone was sometimes very simple. Just a single look was enough. He insisted on liking someone. No one understood it, but he understood it. "Since you want to duel Grandpa, then let Grandpa see your true strength." As soon as his voice fell, the golden cane in Qianbazi's right hand fell to the ground. The dark clouds covering the moon in the sky instantly dispersed, and the full moon was reflected on the astrolabe. The astrolabe instantly lit up with a deep blue light. See, si. A strange sound came from around them. It was like there was a group of people approaching them. No, perhaps it wasn't people, but rather zombies. "The only power users left in this city are you." Qianbazi gave a strange laugh. "Do you still remember the location of the power users displayed in the CNC Center? It's actually the other way around." As soon as Qianbazi's voice fell, Luo Qingchen and Qian Sinai instantly understood. The location on the big screen in the CNC Center was the other way around. So Luo Qingmian was clearly in the Qian Manor, but the location displayed was Fragrant Hill. Qianbazi spent all this time delaying them. It must be to gather all the zombies in a city. He had already thought of a plan B. He didn't believe that they would easily hand over Luo Qingmian. "I'm not from this world. I have more powers than you can imagine." Luo Qingchen raised the phoenix dance sword in her right hand as she looked at Qianbazi. "I don't believe that I can't kill these zombies." In the apocalypse, after going through so many battles, she was already an A-grade power user. But she was very clear in her heart that she was much stronger than an A-grade power user. However, what they had to face was endless waves of zombies and endless battles. In the next second, Hua Kaijin stood in front of her and looked up calmly at Qian Swansea. How laughable! A saint who thinks he's the savior of this city, but he's actually slaughtered the lives of this city's citizens. Since it's like this, why pretend to be noble? What do you know? Qianbazi pointed at Hua Kaijin. If they aren't strong now, how can they fight against the powerful aliens 200 years later? The people 200 years later have their own destiny, and you are the murderer. Hua Kaijin picked up his dagger. There's only death, no compromise. His eyes were bloodshot, and everything around him told him that there was no one left alive in this city. Come, Qian Sinai, Qianbazi, Qian Si, Qianbazi, Qianbazi. Zombies aren't as sensitive as you think, so the high-level users won't be affected. Qian. Chapter 2432. But this battle was not as easy as they imagined. Wave after wave of zombies attacked them. Even though they kept obtaining zombies' power nuclei to improve their abilities, they were still exhausted in the end. Ginger is still spicy. Qian Jinzi narrowed his eyes, and his expression was a bit twisted as he looked at Luo Qingchen's group. Grandpa is still Grandpa. You can't fight against the endless zombies no matter how strong you are. Luo Qingchen's cold eyes narrowed as her face turned a bit pale. The phoenix dance sword in her hand was dripping with black blood, and her eyes were filled with a deathly stillness. Why was it so hard for her to protect someone? Looking at Qian Sinai's back standing in front of her, it seemed so bleak at that moment. He had given up everything for her, standing on the opposite side of his most important family. But what could she do? If it wasn't for Qian Jinzi wanting her little brother's life, she wouldn't have come to this step. Big sister. Suddenly, a pair of white hands pulled on her clothes. Give me. To him. I won't. Luo Qingchen immediately squatted down and softly hugged Luo Qingmian. Qian Sinai and Hua Kaijin quickly stood on the left and right, protecting them. She stubbornly rejected her kind little brother's unreasonable request. Based on what? Based on what did he have to sacrifice himself? She definitely wouldn't. Big sister. I've always. He gave two soft coughs before saying in a weak voice, I've always been a burden to you. But in the apocalypse, I suddenly could see, I thought, I could protect you. He said this while raising his hand and gently wiping away the tears on her face. But in the end, I still dragged you down. I don't want to hear you say this. Luo Qingchen desperately shook her head. If I don't die, you won't die. This was her promise to him. Even if she destroyed the world, she would never let the bad guys succeed. Brother, hold on a bit. Qian Sinai tightly knit his brows. He waved his right hand and squatted down to grab Luo Qingchen's shoulder. Listen to me. I know a way to return everything to normal. He looked at Luo Qingmian and said, I believe. He already saw it. You can't. Luo Qingmian used all her strength to roar out. She tightly grabbed Luo Qingxian's clothes and said, Big sister, believe me, handing me over is the best choice, the only choice. You? What are you talking about? Her voice trembled. She could see the same light in their eyes. It was a light known as sacrifice. Qingmian, your big sister. He needs you more. Luo Qingmian seriously looked at Qian Sinai and said, Giving big sister to you. I'm assured. Ugh. In the next second, Hua Kaijin seemed to be unable to block the zombies' attacks, and his shoulder was pierced by one of the zombies. Just for Qian Sinai's brother, hold on. Friendship was something that could be experienced in a moment of life and death. The sacrifice that Luo Qingxian deeply felt wasn't just a feeling. Chapter 2433. Xiaonai. Qian Suzi angrily roared out. As if he could feel what Qian Sinai wanted to do, his bright eyes suddenly became filled with fear. Every member of the Qian family had a special ability. They could open and close space-time orbits. In this chaotic time, he was a superfluous person to begin with. Qian Suzi opened the tracks of the stars and traveled through time, coming to 200 years ago. This was going against the heavens. The original time and space had already collapsed, and some people couldn't even go back. In that case, let him be the one to end everything. Qian Sinai, don't mess around, we still have a chance. Luo Qingxian couldn't focus on anything. This scene only gave her one feeling. That was losing, whether it was Qian Sinai or Luo Qingmian. She felt that she would lose them. Fool, we don't have a chance. He gently raised his hand and patted her head. I think that Qingmian should have seen the future. We don't need you to make a choice. Qian Sinai knew that once he and Hua Kaijin couldn't resist the zombies, Luo Qingmian's crystal core would be taken by his grandfather. After this, no one could change the development of this world. Perhaps it would become as strong as Qian Suzi said, or perhaps it would become a cold and heartless world. But no matter what, since so many people would die in the end, it was better for him to face it alone. Big sister. Luo Qingmian used all her strength to grab her sleeve at the same time, as a weak and clear voice sounded in her ears. Give me to him, and you can all live. If you don't give me to him, we will all die. He didn't want to die. He wanted to stay by his big sister's side. The apocalypse wasn't cruel to him at all. Rather, it was lucky, because it allowed him to see everything in this world, to see the big sister he loved the most. His big sister would never know how happy he was when he used his powers to save her. Finally, he wasn't a burden, only making his big sister worry. Finally, he could be a hero, standing firmly in front of her to protect her. But fate made fools of people. He never thought that the price he had to pay to become strong was death. Just like your sister, I will protect you. Qian Sinai moved his hand that was on Luo Qingxian's head to Luo Qingmian's head, gently patting his head. Brother, listen to me. There's no time. Qian Sinai looked at the red moon before turning to say, No matter where you appear, you have to protect your big sister. Do you understand? Qian Sinai. Luo Qingxian could already feel the aura of life and death. She suddenly raised her hands and tightly grabbed his wrist as she said, I'm begging you. All right, Qian Sinai, let us fight to the end. Why do they have to be separated by life and death? What was the difference between this separation and dying together? She didn't understand and absolutely couldn't accept it. But right after that, Qian Sinai's large and gentle hand covered her eyes. A faint blue light flashed in front of her eyes, bringing with it a touch of coldness. Luo Qingxian didn't know what Qian Sinai was doing. She just knew that the sound in her ears became softer and softer until everything disappeared. Chapter 2434. Qian Sinai stood in the center of the star disk as the ice around him separated bit by bit, making Z sounds. The red moon in the sky shined down on Qian Sinai's body, and his eyes were as cold as ink. His final gaze fell onto the young girl with her eyes tightly closed and her face as calm as ice. The dust of the world seemed to have ended at this moment. The space and time between the stars was opened by the Qian family. But to return everything to the beginning, other than the key crystal core, there was also the bloodline of the Qian family. In other words, it was life. Qian CZ used his blood-related little brother's life to open the space and time path, which was Qian Sinai's uncle. Qian Sinai didn't know about this until he saw the records of the Qian family. Bloodlines could open the orbit of the stars and travel through space and time. But he didn't know if it was the past or the future. At that time, he thought that it was just a legend of the Qian family. He didn't know that he came from another space and time. Now that he thought about it, everything was already destined. The obsession in his grandfather's heart was already deeply rooted. He hated ignorant humans and wanted to change this dirty world. He thought that it was because of these stupid humans that harmed the Qian family, harming his son and daughter-in-law who had always protected them. This obsession came from his heart's demon, from his sorrow. But for Qian Sinai, as long as Luo Qingshun could live, everything would be worth it. Be good and be a gentle girl. That way people won't wildly fall in love with you. If there is a next life, please don't remember me. His slightly cold voice sounded in her ears, and all the memories of him disappeared bit by bit from her mind. Before she could react, the scenes of them going through life and death together disappeared without a trace. Memories were like cotton, being frozen by the cold bit by bit. Before forgetting him, she couldn't help laughing at herself in her heart. So one of your dual abilities is to make people forget their memories. It really is a bit ruthless. Brother, you can't do this. Luo Qingyan saw that the sky had darkened and the zombies that were attacking them seemed to have stopped in their tracks. Although Hua Kai-jin was heavily injured, he still used all his strength to release the wild winds, wanting to make Qian Sinai come down from the center of the disk. But no matter what, he stood in the middle without moving. His gaze was always fixed on Luo Qingshun. This seemed to be a kind of farewell look. How much he wanted to hug her, but he had no choice but to leave. Where would he go? Death? If she died, then they would never be able to see each other again. He suddenly felt a little shaken. He should have hugged her a little longer just now, because he probably wouldn't be able to hug her in this lifetime. He always felt that he had never experienced such warm days. He always felt that time was too short. Other than fighting, there was only killing. Now that he could start his life all over again, he should have resolutely held her hand when he first met her. In that warm and breezy time, everything was beautiful. Pity, pity, pity. There was no more chance. Qian Swazi's legs went soft, and he actually fell and sat down. He naturally knew what Qian Sinai wanted to do, so his bright eyes instantly became filled with sadness. He was old, his heart was old. He never thought that Qian Sinai would be tied down, nor did he think that the person he was tied to would have such a close relationship with the key. Seeing the dark sky become brighter bit by bit, he suddenly felt a bit of regret. If he agreed to not kill Luo Qingmian and not take his crystal core, would everything be different? Chapter 2435. In the depths of the dangerous peak, there will be no regrets. In the depths of the years, there will be no regrets. It was now January 4th, 2155. The weather was fine, and it was the first day of school after the holidays. In the new year, the whole city was full of a festive atmosphere, but there were very few people in the city or in the country. But for some reason, there were many tall buildings built in this city. There were also many empty houses that no one lived in. Some people even began to wonder why they bought a house with 4 bedrooms and 1 living room when they were all alone. There were bosses who only had 2 employees in the whole company, but rented a whole floor. There were also schools where there were clearly 30 students in some classes, but there were classes where there were only 8 or 9 students. The school knew there was a mistake, so they quickly changed classes. Ching ching, mian mian, come down for breakfast. Mother's voice surrounded her ears. Luo Qingshun stood in front of the mirror and took a deep breath, curling up the corner of her mouth. Luo Qingyan came down from upstairs, a pair of clean eyes filled with gentle light. For days ago, he suddenly could see. Mother was grateful, and the whole family was happy for him. When he went to the hospital for examination, the doctor only said it was a miracle. God opened his eyes and let a kind-hearted young man see the light again. Suddenly, from a blind man to a person who could see the world, Luo Qingyan was more excited than anyone else. For her brother to see the light again, she specially ordered a cake for him to celebrate. You two can go to school after eating the rest of the cake. Mother's gentle voice sounded in her ears. She took out twice the milk from the microwave and said, "Drink this. Mom is going to the orphanage today. You can solve your dinner by yourself." After breakfast, the brother and sister went to the bus stop to take a bus. The morning air was always inexplicably refreshing. Luo Qingshun stood at the bus stop and closed her eyes. She put on headphones and listened to the song, "Next Year," and took a deep breath. The lyrics echoed in her ears, full of indescribable warmth and inexplicable sadness. Looking at the stream under the starry sky, the intersection where we will meet next year. Still remember to quietly hold your left hand, making an appointment to go together next year. What is the future? The days have to go forward. Waiting under the shade of the tree, there was no parting of meeting, but there were many people who were sorrowful because of the red bean lovesickness. I have stood at the appointed place for the coming year, waiting for thee to be my bride. Once there were two people who pretended to be each other, but where will they be next year? Sis, I want to transfer to your school. Luo Qingyan's voice suddenly rang out, interrupting her train of thought. What? You don't want to study music after suddenly being able to see? Luo Qingshun said with a soft laugh. You still want to come to our school to hook up with the big sisters? Of course not. Luo Qingyan shook her head seriously. That way, I can be with my sister. I can also protect you or something. I heard that there are many bad girls in your school. Nonsense. She gently patted Luo Qingyan's head. Her clear eyes sparkled as she smiled and said, Rumors stop with the wise. Our school is filled with gentle and cute little sisters. She looked at her brother like this, her faint gaze falling on his fair cheeks. That gentle face looked so beautiful. It was so good-looking that one would never get tired of looking at it. Chapter 2436. Luo Qingshun looked at his sunken eyes and smiled. Who said you can't? I'll wait for you. Really? That pair of beautiful eyes looked the best when they were lit up. Really? She nodded with a smile in her eyes. On Monday mornings, the students always arrived at school early. There weren't many people in Class A, only around 20, but there were many seats, at least 40. However, they were all empty tables. Come. Students helped to stack the tables in the back 5 rows to the blackboard. The teacher stood on the podium and waved the ruler in his hand as he announced the task. Luo Qingshun tidied up her things and stood up slowly. Her gaze fell on the table by the window. The table was very clean, and under the pouring sunlight, it looked like a brand new table. She took a look and walked forward. Just as she was about to move the table, an elegant face came into view. Fair skin, deep eyes, long eyelashes, and short silver hair. No matter how she looked at him, he looked like a teenager who walked out of manga. Wow! Excited voices sounded from all around her, and the whispers of the crowd slowly drifted into her ears. Is young Master Jean helping Qingshun? Why do I feel that the scene is so harmonious? Yes. A talented man and a beautiful woman. I'm a little excited. Wow. Young Master Jean always gives people the feeling of elegance and gentleness. I'm so envious. People with good grades are different. They can easily capture the heart of a male god. Do you want to become a pauper in exchange for your good grades? What's wrong with that? Money can be earned. Things like grades can't be obtained through hard work. Yeah, that makes sense. This student, let me do it. Girls don't need to move. Hua Kaijin lowered his head slightly and looked at Luo Qingshun with a gentle gaze. She didn't nod. Instead, she held the 2 corners of the table tightly until her fingertips turned white. Then, she looked up and smiled. Let's move together. Hua Kaijin was slightly stunned. In the next second, he smiled faintly. Okay. Wow, this old man's maiden heart. Could it be that there's a story? Huh, that must be the story of a desk and chair. I'm so jealous. Jealousy. Let's stay together. Everyone's jeering continued, but Luo Qingshun didn't seem to take it to heart. Her expression was indifferent, and there was always a faint smile on her picturesque face. Everyone in the class liked her very much, because she was good-looking, because she was good at studying, and because her smile was very beautiful. Even if she wasn't rich, even if she wasn't a noble, they still liked her very much. The third period in the afternoon was English. The sky was foggy, and it felt like there was going to be a thunderstorm. In the morning, her mother seemed to have reminded them to bring umbrellas, but she was in a hurry and forgot to bring one. Ching-chun, ching-chun, a low voice sounded. The student on the right gently patted her arm and handed her a folded white paper. The school beau gave it to you. Luo Ching-chun was slightly stunned. Her eyebrows trembled as she nodded and said, "Thank you." She opened the paper. The handwriting inside was elegant and strong. It was especially beautiful. It seemed that as long as she saw this kind of handwriting, she would be reminded of Hua Caijin's appearance. Chapter 2437. Luo Ching-chun picked up her pen and thought for a long time before writing her reply. "Okay, Luo Ching-chun, can you help me pass the message?" She patted the hand of the curly-haired girl beside her. That person turned her head and patted her chest. She smiled happily and said, "I'm very happy to help." In this long period of youth, this seemed to be what youth looked like. There was no intentional injury, no paranoid jealousy, no inhumane means perhaps some people would be secretly sad because their male idol and school hunk had a partner, but they would settle this little secret in the bottom of their hearts. After a long time, they smiled in relief. However, most of the people were just onlookers who were happy to matchmake them. Ding-ling, the bell rang for the end of class. Everyone seemed reluctant to leave. Luo Ching-chun touched her ear embarrassedly and walked to the door with a faint smile. Hua Caijin followed behind and didn't forget to make a should gesture to everyone. He smiled and said, "Thank you, everyone, but it might be different from what you imagined. Male idol, you can do it. School hunk won the beauty's heart and will treat us to a meal. I want to eat spicy crayfish. You only know how to eat and eat every day. You're already 160 years old and you're still eating." Hua Caijin made an okay gesture to everyone and followed Luo Ching-chun's footsteps. The sky rumbled, and a heavy rain fell on Hua Caijin's black umbrella. He covered her head with all the umbrellas, but he was mostly wet. "Your poetry recital today was really good." Hua Caijin looked up slightly and glanced at the thick clouds. "I didn't know you were so good at reciting before." Luo Ching-chun followed his gaze and looked over. She felt that if she closed her eyes in such a dark scene, she could still hear that cool voice by her ear. It refreshed the heart and refreshed the mind, making one feel intoxicated. "In," she replied faintly and looked away. She walked forward with light steps. Hua Caijin followed behind her and narrowed his eyes. There was an unknown emotion in his eyes. No one knew, and no one could understand. He sent her home safely and saw Luo Ching-chun anxiously waiting for her at the door. "Sis, why aren't you picking up the phone?" Luo Ching-chun anxiously walked forward and used a towel to wrap her hair before her gaze landed on Hua Caijin behind her. His clear eyes were clearly stunned for a moment before he asked, "Well, I didn't check my phone just now." The corner of Luo Ching-chun's mouth rose slightly. "This is my classmate, Hua Caijin. This is my younger brother, Luo Ching-chun." "Hello." "Hello," Luo Ching-chun politely replied. "Thank you for bringing my sister back." "It's my duty." Hua Caijin nodded faintly. There was a faint light in his deep eyes, which seemed especially deep in the night. "Then I'll go back first. Rest early." Hua Caijin nodded and bade farewell. Every movement was filled with elegance and gentlemanly. "Be careful on the road." Luo Ching-chun gently waved her hand. Luo Ching-chun called Hua Caijin and said something with deep meaning. "So I'm not alone." Hua Caijin was stunned, and there was a faint shock in his eyes. He didn't know that in the next second, Luo Ching-chun shrugged and said with a smile, "Ha, I just feel that there's one more person who will be good to my sister in the future." Chapter 2438. When they got home, their mother had already made dinner. For dishes and a soup, very rich. Because in addition to the two of them, there was another child at home. When my mother went to the orphanage today, she saw a child who was very pitiful. He kept grabbing my clothes. Luo Mu sighed and touched the baby climbing on the stool. She continued, I felt that I must have fate with him in my last life, so I brought him back. Luo Qingchun glanced at the little boy, and a touch of Li Guang flashed in her eyes. Although he was still very young, one could still see that his facial features were especially exquisite, especially his pair of ink-black eyes. His eyes are somewhat similar to Mian Mian. Luo Qingchun chuckled and said, Mother is so kind. Luo Qingyan didn't speak and didn't say a word. Seeing this, Luo Mu looked at him and said, Is Mian Mian unhappy? In fact, the situation at home is not very good. Mother did this abruptly, but Mom, I didn't mean that. Luo Qingyan put down the bowl and chopsticks and shook her head gently. She said, I just suddenly remembered something. My sister is right. He is very cute. His eyes are like mine. Some scenes, people can forget, but he can't forget. Experienced is experienced. Those unforgettable memories are deeply imprinted in the mind and can't be removed. But you don't have to worry about financial matters. Luo Qingyan pursed her lips and said, Some of my classmates and I received some invitations for vocal music tours. Although the money is not much, it is enough to support you and your sister and this little brother. Really? Will it affect your studies? Don't worry, Mom. It's just a part-time job on weekends. It won't affect my studies. That's good, that's good. You're all grown up, so Mom is relieved. The joyous and harmonious home-cooked meal made people feel so warm. Even though the storm was raging outside the window, they felt especially warm at home. It was like when the sky was a child. As long as he was tired, he was used to pulling into the quilt. After dinner, Luo Mu took the baby to the supermarket next door to buy some baby products. Luo Qingchun originally wanted to go with them, but Luo Qingyan felt that she had a cold, so she didn't let her go. But he carefully made a cup of cold medicine for her, and then smiled and said, I'm going to the supermarket with my mother like a knight. Poochie. She couldn't help chuckling and said, like something dangerous is going to happen. That might not be the case. Luo Qingyan blinked and said, the greenhouse effect is so serious now. If the apocalypse. When he said this, he happened to meet Luo Qingchun's eyes. When their eyes met, Luo Qingyan. He looked into his sister's eyes. That pair of clear and spirited eyes were suffused with a faint light, without the slightest fluctuation. What is it? Luo Qingchun saw that she didn't speak for a while and said with a faint smile, What are you thinking about? No, nothing. Luo Qingyan shrugged and smiled. Mom is waiting for me. Remember to take your medicine. Yes. Go. Luo waved her hand and fixed her eyes on a certain spot. After a while, she laughed at herself and murmured, Doomsday is actually quite good. Chapter 2439. There were some people who always thought that everything was perfect, that the script was flawless. They naively thought that everything they did would allow the people living to live without worries and live happily. Without his memories, living. What a joke, what a joke. If it was another person today, perhaps they could really follow the script he wrote. But she couldn't because she was Luo Qingchun, the Luo Qingchun who passed through 38 planes, the one with the system, the one with the space, and the one with the absolute powers. How could she forget? How could she forget? Without knowing how long passed, she slowly wiped the tears from her face and walked into the bathroom with a towel. The sound of water splashing down was mixed with cries and shouts that no one could understand. He said that as long as she became gentle, understanding, and obedient, no one would like her. She knew why he said this, because he was in more pain than her when he left her. She did it, becoming a girl who was like a spring breeze. She didn't have the aura of a queen. She didn't have those indifferent eyes. She gave a faint smile to anyone she saw, whether she liked that person or not, because she couldn't get rid of the words of that youth named Qian Sinai in her mind. Be good, be a gentle girl. That way I won't wildly fall in love with you. It's all a lie. She closed her eyes and felt the hot water on her cheeks. She pursed her lips and said, No matter what I become, you won't come back. After taking a shower, she sat at her desk and opened the package she bought 2 days ago. It was a beautiful letter and a glazed fountain pen. She took a deep breath and wrote down what she wanted to say. It was a pity that no one could understand it. We're back. We're back to the day when the apocalypse came. But this time, the apocalypse didn't come. Life has changed a lot, and the world population is less than a tenth of what it was before. This was because the people who died in that parallel world didn't appear in this world. It was as if they had suddenly disappeared. There was no memory of them in everyone's mind. The they here includes by Lianxin, whom I hate the most, and you, whom I like the most. That's why I knew you wouldn't come back. I refuse your order to leave me alone in this world. However, there was also good news. Mian could still see it. He was very happy, but I felt that there was an indescribable emotion in his eyes. I couldn't understand it, but I didn't want to guess. Hua Kaijin was still there too. He suddenly took care of me, making me feel like nothing had changed. It was just that you weren't there anymore, but you're not here. I don't want to stay. Although I'm unwilling, I can't think of why I'm here. I don't even have a right to do that. Drip, drip, drip. Tears of sorrow fell onto the letter. The words that had yet to dry began to spread out bit by bit. She still wanted to write something, but she realized that the hand holding the pen was trembling slightly. Sis, I'm back. I bought you your favorite lemon yakul. When Luo Qingmian opened the door, she nervously wiped the tears from her face and hid the letter in the drawer. Other than her, there was no one else in this world who knew about Qianxinai. If Luo Qingmian saw this letter, she would definitely be worried for her, thinking that there was something wrong with her mind. Chapter 2440. Sis, what's wrong? Your eyes are red. Luo Qingyan furrowed her brows as a trace of worry flashed across her eyes. She sniffed and shook her head. Maybe it's a bit serious. I'll sleep early. All right. Luo Qingyan walked up and gently touched her forehead. You don't have a fever, sis. You should sleep early. And good night. She tossed and turned the entire night, and her mind was filled with the dark red moon. No matter what, she couldn't get rid of it. The next day, her cold seemed to have gotten worse, and her throat was even more inflamed. Luo Qingyan furrowed her brows and looked at her. Sis, are you really resting? Why do I feel like you look worse than yesterday? The next second, he gently touched her forehead. You seem to have a bit of a fever. Cough, cough. Luo Qingxian lightly coughed. It shouldn't be too serious. I think you shouldn't go to school today and rest at home. Luo Qingyan looked at her with worry. Rest at home? I'm going to transfer schools today. So fast. Luo Qingxian's brows slightly moved. You're already done with the transfer? Yes. Your little brother is still very outstanding. Luo Qingyan lightly laughed. Moreover, the schools are all accepting students now. Even though it's a noble school, the requirements seem to have been lowered a lot. Luo Qingxian was slightly startled and suddenly said, Yes, there's a lot less people. Just rest well, sis. Luo Qingyan said, I'll help you ask for leave later. No need, I'll ask for leave myself. Luo Qingxian shook her head and said, Go early and come back early. It might still rain. Remember to bring an umbrella. Okay. At noon, Luo Qingxian changed into a bright red Christmas dress and a large elk hat to go out for lunch. The sky was drizzling, so she opened a black umbrella and got into a taxi. Driver, please drive to Nanling. The driver was obviously stunned for a moment. After pressing the timer, he said, The road to Nanling is very long. It might take about an hour. Yes, I know. Luo Qingxian nodded and stopped talking. She looked out of the window. In such weather, there was always a hint of sadness. After getting out of the car and walking for about 30 minutes, she finally stood in front of Villa. When he closed his eyes, he could still remember the last scene of their battle here. Scene after scene, it was like a scene from a movie. It was deeply imprinted in his mind. Are you okay? Luo Qingxian nodded slightly, her eyes red. She bit her lips and said, Are you really not coming back? Holding the umbrella, a cool breeze blew past, blowing her slightly curly long hair. The ribbon of the bough danced in the wind, and the girl closed her eyes. The scene was like a painting too beautiful to behold. In the next second, the mysterious door slowly opened. Luo Qingxian's heart skipped a beat. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly, and even her fingertips trembled unconsciously. 3 seconds later, she lifted her foot and walked inside. In the empty villa, there was no sound at all, as if no one had ever been here. She took a deep breath and walked towards the backyard. The huge astrolabe came into view, but it was not set off by the dark red full moon in the sky. Instead, it seemed a little dim. She still remembered when he stood here, his deep eyes reflecting her figure, his eyes filled with reluctance. Chapter 2441. I'm fine. Luo Qingshun sniffled and tears fell drop by drop. She looked at the astrolabe in front of her and said, I'm as obedient as you told me to be, a gentle girl. But it's different from what you said. She took a deep breath, and her choked voice was a bit muffled. In the next second, she continued, I received quite a lot of love letters, shio shio shio. In an instant, a strong wind blew and her elk hat was blown off. Boom! A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, and in an instant, the entire astrolabe lit up under the illumination of the lightning. Luo Qingxin froze. Her beautiful eyes flashed at Li Guang. She wanted to say something, but couldn't say anything. The wind whistled in her ears, blowing up her burgundy plaid skirt and her slightly curly hair. In the next second, her phone vibrated. A familiar ringtone slowly entered her ears. It was her favorite song recently. Two People's story doesn't have time to end. Things are the same, but people are different. I don't know where to go next. It seems like next year will become a wound. Luo Qingchun took her phone out of her pocket in a panic, and when she saw the name on it, her heart sunk. Mion Mion. Hello. Luo Qingchun picked up the phone and said, What's up? Sis, why aren't you home? Luo Qingmian's voice was slightly anxious. He said softly, Why are you running around when you're sick? Luo Qingchun hurriedly replied, I'm coming back. I went downstairs to eat. I packed some porridge for you. Luo Qingmian sighed and said, Where are you? I'll go pick you up. No need. Luo Qingchun nodded slightly. She looked at the dim astrolabe and said faintly, I'll be back soon. When she left the Qian residence, she looked back 3 times with every step. She kept telling herself that there was no need to look back. He wouldn't appear. But in his heart, he kept thinking about her. Turn back again, turn back again. Perhaps there will be a miracle, but in the end, other than that strange gust of wind, there was nothing else. On the way back in a taxi, she kept thinking about how she was going to continue her journey. Should he think of a way to end his life and return to the primal chaos space to start another journey? Or should he wait forever? But he had worked so hard in exchange for the peace of this world. He had used his life in exchange for a chance for her to live. If she killed herself just like that, wouldn't she be letting him down? He put on his headphones and closed his eyes. This question kept circulating in her mind, and she couldn't get it out of her head. It wasn't until the driver called her 3 times that she came back to her senses. Miss, we're here, okay? Don't interfere with other people's business, okay? Go see a doctor if you're deaf, the driver said impolitely. I'm sorry. Luo Qingchun hurriedly apologized. I've caused you trouble. Pay up and get off quickly. The driver's tone was still rough, and his rough hands didn't forget to reach behind her and snatch the money that she hadn't taken out completely. 95, but I'll charge you 100. The driver continued to impatiently say, Hurry up and get off. So annoying. Other than the initial apology, Luo Qingchun didn't care about him again and got out of the car. The rain had already stopped, and a beautiful rainbow appeared in the sky. Chapter 2442. At the same time, in the same taxi, a man wearing a black windbreaker, a black mask, and a black hat stopped the taxi that Luo Qingchun had just taken 30 meters ahead. He didn't sit in the front, but in the back. The driver had a wretched smile on his face as he counted the money he had earned today, but the timer had already entered the charging mode. Yo, where are you going? The driver glanced at the man sitting in the back through the rearview mirror and rolled his eyes in disdain. Don't tell me you're a robber dressed like this. Nailing. His clear and cold voice slowly sounded, giving people a sense of unapproachable déjà vu. The driver whistled and turned the steering wheel while not forgetting to say, There are so many people going back and forth to that damn place today, it's really strange. From the moment they got on the highway, the rain became heavier and heavier, so much so that they couldn't see anything clearly. F***. The rain is really heavy. Along the way, he had been complaining nonstop, and his mouth never stopped nagging. The youngster sitting in the back seat didn't respond except for the two words Nanling at the beginning. Until the taxi entered Nanshan Road, his right hand's fingertips flickered with a faint white light. 15 minutes later, when the taxi driver turned into Nanshan Road again, he scratched his head with a puzzled expression and said, what's going on? F***. Didn't I just pass by here? The youngster still didn't speak, and the amount on the monitor had already reached 120 yuan. The driver stepped on the accelerator and sped forward. After another 30 minutes, the road sign of Nanshan Road appeared in front of him again. This time, there was a look of panic in his eyes. Only a hiss sound was heard, followed by a lengthy braking sound. The driver stopped the car under the road sign and said in a trembling voice, "I seem to have been possessed. Don't you feel that we've been here many times?" 3 times. The youngster's voice was extremely cold, without a trace of warmth. The driver exclaimed and looked at the rearview mirror in a panic. The youngster was still sitting steadily, without any change. Who are you?" As the driver spoke, he tried to open the door in a panic. Little did he know that he had already pulled out the key, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open the door. At that moment, a kacha sound was heard, and the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. The heavy rain outside the window instantly turned into hail. The 4 windows of the taxi were covered in a thick layer of ice. The scene was like the end of the world. How is this possible?" the driver exclaimed as he hugged his head with both hands. His eyes widened as he stared at the young man before him. Bang, bang. 2 huge hailstones hit the windshield, and the glass cracked. "Are you afraid now?" The young man smiled coldly. His deep eyes were suffused with a faint light, making people not dare to look at him directly. The driver's hands and feet were trembling nonstop. He drove back and forth on the straight road 3 times, but he still returned to the starting point. No matter how dense he was, he clearly knew that he was going around in circles. This kind of thing that only existed in supernatural novels actually happened to him. He was really scared to the extreme. Looking at the calm and composed appearance of this black-clothed youth, he knew that the ghost hitting the wall must have something to do with him. You, who are you? What do you want? Did I offend you?" Chapter 2443. The driver clearly didn't react. His entire body was in a state of confusion. He could only put his hands together and continuously beg for mercy. Big brother, uncle, no matter how I offended you, please be magnanimous and let me go. I worked hard to earn money for the family. I'm a good person." The youth ignored him and closed his eyes, his whole body emitting a burst of cold air. The scene of the apocalypse appeared in front of his eyes. This was the Harmony train running on the railroad tracks. A man and his wife were riding this train together. It was the 2nd day of the red rain. There were many people with colds and fever on the train. When the train was halfway, suddenly a person stood up like a madman, his limbs making caw-caw sounds. They were very fast, biting people on sight and spreading the infection extremely quickly. Once bitten, they became violent, their skin thinned, their eyes protruded, and sharp fangs. The man and his wife kept escaping to the safety of the carriage. He used his strong body to make others his shield along the way. Finally, when he ran out of excuses, he pushed his wife out. In the end, his wife became a zombie, but he survived. Good person? The youth narrowed his eyes, a pair of beautiful eyes emitting a cold light. He sneered and said, "You killed your wife. I don't necessarily want her life. After all, people in that world are inherently evil." The next second, he continued, "But you were fierce to that girl. I can't let you live." "What wife? What girl?" The driver looked at the youth in front of him in horror, desperately shaking his head. "I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't know what you're talking about. Do you feel at ease taking that 100 yuan? The youth sneered, quickly taking out the 100 yuan he took from Luo Qingshan. Then, he carefully put it in his pocket. You're talking about that girl. She has a problem." The driver seemed to understand something. Just as he was about to open his mouth to explain, he was intimidated by the youth's cold eyes, not daring to say a word. In this world, The people who speak ill of her and speak ill of her. The young man paused and looked up coldly. They're all dead. The driver was clearly on the verge of breaking down. He desperately tried to open the door as he cried, "Please let me go. Just consider it my bad luck. I'll give you this 100 yuan, okay? Or I can give you both. I'll give you both, okay? I don't want your money." The young man narrowed his cold eyes and sneered, "I want your life." As soon as he finished speaking, the hailstones falling from the sky became bigger and bigger, smashing heavily on the taxi. The sharp icicle pierced through the windshield and stabbed into the driver's heart. His eyes were wide open and filled with fear. He wanted to call for help, but no sound came out. He didn't know who he had offended, nor did he know that he would die. He even thought that he could go to the nightclub on West Street to find the lady who panted on the bed last night with the money he earned from the detour today. Unfortunately, there was no more chance. Before he died, a car full of zombies appeared in front of his eyes, and the woman he pushed out and turned into a zombie. Chapter 2444. At the same time, in the Luo family, Luo Qingmian was holding a thermometer for Luo Qingchen while pouring hot water for cold medicine. Ever since she came back, he had been busy nonstop. He had already gone in and out of her room 5 times. Luo Qingchen was a bit dizzy from being shaken by him as she shouted at him, "I'm really not sick, but you're making me sick. Big sister, you're already this old. Where did you go in such a heavy rain?" Luo Qingmian picked up the cup of cold medicine and didn't forget to mutter while walking, "You know I'll be worried. I went to Nanlingdong." As soon as her voice fell, the cup of cold medicine in Luo Qingmian's hand fell to the ground. The cold medicine spilled out and wet the light blue carpet. "What is it?" Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes as a faint mist appeared in her clear eyes. "No, nothing." Luo Qingmian quickly picked up the broken cup and said with a soft laugh, "Big sister, you suddenly said that Nanling is so far away. I was scared and my hand slipped." "Is it really like that?" Luo Qingchen lowered her head and her voice became low. She pursed her lips and said, "Why didn't you ask me why I went to Nanling?" "Ah." Luo Qingmian looked away in a panic, not daring to look into her eyes. He turned around and said, "I didn't have time to ask, right? Big sister, you went to Nanling for." "Why?" Luo Qingchen cut him off and suddenly looked up. Her low voice was choked with sobs as she looked at his back. "Why do you also remember Qian Sinai?" In that instant, Luo Qingmian felt his back suddenly turn stiff. His entire body was frozen and he couldn't move at all. Why? Why did his big sister remember Qian Sinai? He always thought that he was the only one with memories of the apocalypse in this world. When he was on the star disk, didn't Qian Sinai erase his big sister's memories? Not to mention that it had been so many days. He was very clear that the people who died in the apocalypse were like they didn't exist in this world. No matter how close a family member was, or how much a lover loved them, they would not have the memories of those who had died in the apocalypse. That was why there were suddenly so few people in the schools, and why there were always well-furnished but uninhabited houses in the city centers, and why the world's population suddenly fell to less than 1/10 of its original size. He knew why all of this had happened, and he also knew the cause and effect of all of this. He didn't even find it strange because he knew that this was all thanks to Qian Sinai. This included his return to the modern realm, where he could see the light of day again. He always thought that having all his memories was a treasure left to him by the heavens, so that the great hero Qian Sinai would at least have one person's memories. But he didn't expect his sister to remember it as well. "Why aren't you talking?" Seeing that Luo Qingmian did not speak, she continued, "Your protection of me and your unfathomable eyes are enough to explain everything. You remember everything that happened in the apocalypse. You remember him." "Sister." Luo Qingmian turned around, her beautiful eyes filled with shock. His eyes trembled slightly as he slowly said, "Why do you remember, big sister?" He had thought that no one would remember what had happened during the apocalypse, but he had never thought that his sister would remember everything just like him. Chapter 2445. That's right. He was Qian Sinai. He was the Qian Sinai who stood in the center of the star disk and didn't fear death. He was also the person in her heart. 10 minutes later, He made her another cup of cold medicine before sitting beside her. I don't know why I remember him either. It's like a dream from the apocalypse. But you didn't tell me. Luo Qingshun took a sip of the cold medicine and instantly felt warmth spread through her body. It was a good thing that Luo Qingyan was by her side. That way she wouldn't feel so lonely from missing someone. That day, you woke up very late. When I saw Mom, I asked her a lot of questions. Luo Qingyan explained. She was shocked by my eyes, so I knew that she didn't remember the apocalypse. Perhaps it wasn't that she didn't remember, but the people living in this world had never experienced the apocalypse. Luo Qingshun heard this and drank the cold medicine in one gulp. She picked up the tissue beside her and pressed it against her eyes. So you didn't tell me. Luo Qingyan said with a soft sigh. I just felt that. Since he gave up so much and worked so hard to not let Big Sister have his memories and live happily, why should I go against it? Is there any use in working hard? Luo Qingshun took a deep breath and closed her eyes. I worked so hard to wait for him. Is there any use? Does he know? Luo Qingyan wanted to say something, but she found that it was like a fishbone was stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say a single word, because she knew that comforting words had no use at all. For his big sister, perhaps silently accompanying her was the most important thing. After all, there was at least one person in this world with her, and she had the memories of that person. The next morning, when the first ray of sunlight shined on her face, she narrowed her eyes and found that the sky was clear. She left at 7 in the morning, and the air was filled with the scent of spring mud. Luo Qingyan followed behind her like a little follower until they reached the bus stop. He said, Big Sister, there's a surprise today. What? Luo Qingshun looked over and asked. You won the lottery? Ha! Luo Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. Seeing that his sister could still joke with him, he felt much more at ease. If he had not seen what Luo Qingshun looked like in the end of the world, perhaps he would not be so worried. It was because of her cold and aloof appearance in the post-apocalyptic world. No matter what she encountered, even if she was in deep danger, she never flinched. She was different from the original her, but she made him look up to her even more. She was so dazzling that he couldn't help but look up to her. As soon as she arrived at school, her classmates all gave her meaningful looks, their lips curled into a teasing smile. Luo Qingshun lowered her eyes in embarrassment and walked to her seat. The female classmate who had passed the note for her yesterday sat beside her and asked with a smile, Ahem. How'd it feel to walk in the rain with the school beau? Wow. Tell me, is it romantic? He's nice, but we're just friends. Luo Qingshun's lips curled into a smile, but her eyes were indifferent, giving off a feeling of keeping people 1,000 miles away. Just friends now doesn't mean we'll be friends in the future. The female classmate warmly winked at her and said, Plus, we're all very envious of you. Chapter 2446. She didn't want to waste energy explaining things, but she suddenly wanted to, because in this world, other than her, there was another person who had the memories of that youth. Since he existed, then even if he wasn't in this world, she should spend time explaining things that would never exist. Why? The female classmate looked at her in confusion and asked, Do you have someone you like? Although she wasn't familiar with Luo Qingshun, she felt that she was a low-key and well-behaved girl these days. She wasn't the type who pretended to be reserved or arrogant. If she didn't accept such a gentle and handsome school hunk, then there must be other reasons. The first thing she thought of was that Luo Qingshun had someone she liked. She had asked in a gossipy mood, but she didn't expect her to directly answer her question. That's right. She gently nodded her head. Her eyes were still expressionless. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. Coincidentally, Hua Kaijin walked in from the classroom door. There weren't many people in the classroom. Although Luo Qingshun spoke softly, Hua Kaijin still heard it. The moment their eyes met, she saw the complicated light in his eyes. She had seen this kind of light in Luo Qingyan's eyes before. The scene of him helping her move the table yesterday suddenly appeared in her mind. That pair of complicated eyes definitely didn't only contain the scenery of this world. It was dark, as if he had seen a different world. Shoo. Everyone seemed to have a tacit understanding and stopped talking, returning to their seats. In the next second, the darkness in Hua Sai-jin's eyes slowly dissipated. He took a small bag and walked towards her seat. I saw that you didn't come yesterday, so I thought you were sick. Hua Kai-jin put the cold medicine on the table and said, 3 packs a day to get rid of the cold in your body. Wow! A wave of envious cries sounded, followed by the gossips of the audience. So warm. If I was Luo Qingshun, I would definitely agree. Our school hunk hasn't been so good to any girl in all these years. Yes. I'm so envious. I'm making my friends in the next class jealous too. Sob. Sob your sister. What's the use of sobbing? Will you have a male god like you if you sob? Will the school hunk take another look at you? No, then saw my ass. Luo Qingshun's lips curled up slightly as she listened to the gossips with a hint of warmth. She nodded her head and said, Thank you. Hua Kai-jin saw that she was a little embarrassed and his eyebrows moved slightly. He used another way to explain, I actually just want to take care of you a little more. You don't have to guess the reason, because, of course I didn't. Luo Qingshun slowly looked up with a faint sparkle in her clear eyes. She looked at him and said, I know who you want to take care of me for. Qingshun, says to him. TSS to Luo Qingshun. Chapter 2447. Hua Kai-jin was stunned in place, and it took him a long time to come back to his senses. He never thought that Luo Qingshun would have all the memories of the apocalypse. He never thought that she would still remember Qianxi. He always thought that he was the only one in this world who remembered Qianxi. He remembered that in another world, the dark apocalypse had come to their side. So he wanted to do his best to take care of Luo Qingshun. After all, he had promised his brother that he would protect the person he loved the most. He used his life to exchange for her Chang'an world, and he would protect it for her. So, you remember, after a while, Hua Kai-jin spoke in a daze. He gave a soft sigh as his eyes filled with sadness. Of course, I've never forgotten. She pursed her lips and tried her best to control her emotions. But Hua Kai-jin's eyes filled with emotions made her eyes turn red. Qingshun, but when it comes to taking care of things, please let him do it himself. When she said this, her voice was a bit choked up, but they didn't know that she was trying her best to calm her emotions, not wanting to infect others with sadness. But sometimes, the memories that came in her mind would touch her nerves, and she couldn't control them. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at the two of them with doubtful gazes. They didn't know what the two of them were talking about, but they could feel the oppressive atmosphere around them. It was a kind of oppressive feeling. The joys and sorrows of leaving. This was the feeling of leaving. Come. Everyone quickly go back to your seats and prepare for class. The homeroom teacher came into the classroom with a stack of review materials in his hand. Today we'll be taking a test. Before the teacher's voice fell, the students all cried out. In the new year, what everyone hated the most was that they hadn't taken back their desire to play, but they had to take the test. Before this, I have a piece of good news to share with everyone. The homeroom teacher said with a smile, Our class has 2 new students, and they both want to enter our class. It seems like the learning atmosphere in our class must be very good. Teacher, are they boys or girls? One of the active members raised his hand and asked, There are too many handsome guys in our class. How about 2 beauties? You want beauties too. There are already so many girls in our class. If we distribute them evenly, there will be somewhere left out. Do you believe that we could get a few handsome guys? Hey, Chunhua, can you stop talking about handsome guys all the time? It's as if a few more handsome guys can pair up with you. Ha. Dumb insect, we are in the same boat. You're talking as if you're fated to meet a beautiful woman in this life. Ha. The interesting bickering caused waves of laughter. There were even people who joined in the commotion. Get together. Be together. Be together. Pa. The sound of the ruler hitting the desk could be heard. The homeroom teacher cleared his throat and said, It seems that you think that the mock exam is too easy and want to increase the difficulty, right? Teacher, that was definitely not my fault. It was Chunhua's fault. Teacher, everyone saw it. It was dumb insect who wanted the beauty first. Okay. Don't quarrel with each other. The class teacher shook her head helplessly. There are 2 boys who transferred to our class today. Yeah, Yeah, yeah. Long live teacher. Chapter 2448. You. Chun Hua replied angrily. Some people just don't have good looks, so they expect everyone in the world to be as ugly as them. Unfortunately, there are a lot of handsome guys in this world. Are you sure? Dumb Insect shrugged his shoulders and smiled evilly. If that's the case, then our school wouldn't only have Jean Shao as the school hunk. You. Chunhua was so angry that her face turned red. She slammed the table and said angrily, "You are the classic example of saying that grapes are sour when you can't eat them." With a bang sound, the homeroom teacher who was standing on the podium couldn't stand their bickering and said angrily, "Stop arguing. If you two continue arguing, both of you will run 10 laps on the field." At this moment, the class instantly quieted down. Luo Qingshun rested her chin on her right hand. She felt that this group of children was very cute. That's right. In her eyes, they were like children who enjoyed the time when they bickered with each other in their youth. They enjoyed every moment of peace and happiness. Maybe many years later, when they thought of the person they bickered with, they would finally smile. It would be the most sincere smile from the bottom of their heart. Because of nostalgia, it was sincere. Because of happiness, it was sincere. The homeroom teacher saw a young man who was slowly walking towards the classroom. He waved his hand and said, "Here, here." Luo Qingmian quickened his steps. When he reached the classroom door, he bowed to the homeroom teacher and said, "Hello, teacher." A voice that was as warm as the sun resounded in the quiet air. Some people in the class hadn't seen Luo Qingmian's face yet, but some people only saw his side profile and couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, he's so handsome, okay?" Really? Really? Is it really okay? Why do I feel that his side profile is better than Jean Shao? Hey, you two are exaggerating. Dumb Insect, who was sitting in the last row of the first group, obviously couldn't stand the two girls in front of him. He held a pen and said with disdain, "You guys are really praising the transfer student to the sky. Don't you know whether he is that handsome or not? Have you never seen a handsome guy before?" What they didn't know was that before Dumb Insect finished his words, Luo Qingmian had already walked into the classroom. He was wearing a navy blue sweater and black casual pants. Her fair cheeks were as clean as snow, and her facial features were distinct, especially her pair of beautiful eyes. They were like a pair of clear springs that could speak, so clear and bright. "Hello, everyone. My name is Luo Qingmian." He stood on the podium, his gaze sweeping across the crowd before finally landing firmly on his sister. Hua Kaijin looked at Luo Qingmian on the podium and couldn't help but smile slightly. This feeling was really good. They had fought side by side in that dangerous world, regardless of life and death. But now they were all reunited here. Too bad he wasn't here. Dumb Insect, did you see that? Let me ask you, are you jealous? Chunhua's face was flushed red. She looked at Dumb Insect with her head held high and her chest puffed out. Dumb Insect was dazed for a second. The pen that was originally in its mouth suddenly fell to the ground. His expression had already explained everything to the boy who had suddenly killed his entire class. To be honest, he was really handsome, and it was a very clean and pure kind of handsomeness. It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't jealous. After all, his appearance was far from Luo Qingmian, who was standing on the podium. This was something that he knew very well. But he just couldn't stand Shanhua being so arrogant. When he saw her, the anger in his heart slowly rose. Chapter 2449. You're talking as if being handsome has anything to do with you. Dumb Insect crossed his arms and snorted coldly. He then looked outside the window. Chunhua shrugged nonchalantly and said, "You're just jealous. Clap, clap, clap. You two really can't run away. It just so happens that the temperature outside has increased by 10 degrees. It's very suitable for you two." The homeroom teacher knocked on the table with the ruler again and warned them again. Then she turned around and looked at Luo Qingmian and said, "New student, you can choose your own seat. There are a lot of empty seats in our class. Or if you want to sit alone, you can move the table behind you." In the next second, Chanhua immediately raised her hand and said, "Handsome, handsome. Here, here. Thank you. I'll help you move the table. No, what I mean is, No need to be embarrassed. I'm a friendly person. It's my duty to help new students. Little did she know that before Chunhua finished speaking, Dumb Insect said, Hee, you're so polite. I've already chosen my seat. There's no need to trouble you. Still, thank you. Luo Qingyan replied politely. This kind of scene more or less made her feel a little embarrassed. Chunhua's face instantly turned red, and she hurriedly said, Sorry, I've troubled you. Originally, she wanted to help the handsome new student, but in the end, she was directly rejected. She really felt embarrassed. Originally, she thought that Dumb Insect would laugh happily and mock her, but she didn't expect the class to be so quiet. Dumb Insect held his chin and looked outside the window, faintly. He didn't say a word. He didn't know why, but he just didn't want to say anything. Very strangely, he didn't want to say anything. It's okay, it's okay. Luo Qingyan immediately shook her head and explained, I just want to sit with my sister. Also, I won't let a girl move the table for me. In the next second, Chunhua's originally dim eyes lit up again. Luo Qingchun waved her hand and said, Mian, he's my younger brother, my biological younger brother from the same father. Wow, you really are siblings. You're so good-looking. Chunhua didn't forget to give her a thumbs up, and she smiled like a flower. Don't think too highly of yourself. Dumb Insect suddenly came back to life and mocked Chu Yinsheng. Chunhua rolled her eyes and retorted, That's what I'm doing. I'm not like some people who don't have any love for their classmates. Yes. You're the only one who has the love of your classmates. Dumb Insect sneered. You should also welcome the next handsome man in your eyes. Don't let him blind your eyes. All right. Stop arguing. The homeroom teacher patted the podium and said, New student, please return to your seat. There will be another student coming over later. As soon as he finished speaking, a young man slowly walked over from the corner of the corridor. The warm sunlight shone on the young man's body. Every step he took had a unique aura, causing the ground to sizzle. A crisp sound was heard, as if ice had formed on the surface of the water. The originally warm weather in city suddenly dropped at this moment. Hey, do you guys feel that it's suddenly become cold? Wow, it's not just cold. Why do I feel like my heart is trembling? I feel like I've seen a ghost in the middle of July. My hands are cold. Oh my God, could it be that the end of the world is here? The temperature is dropping. At this moment, Luo Qingchun, who was talking to Luo Qingyan, suddenly froze. Chapter 2450. The comments of the surrounding students entered her ears word by word. Her trembling eyes landed on Hua Kai-jin in the next second. At the same time, he also looked at Luo Qingchen. That pair of bottomless eyes suddenly became slightly flustered. He, who had always been calm, leaned forward to take a look at the new student who had transferred to their class. Why do I feel a little scared? Chunhua's face instantly lost her smitten smile. This aura gave her a completely different feeling from Luo Qingyan just now. It was a kind of footsteps that came from hell. With every step he took, the temperature in the classroom dropped. The homeroom teacher couldn't help but shiver. However, she still turned to look at the young man who was walking towards the classroom. In the next second, she was completely stunned. She felt like she was deeply attracted to him. Even the teacher is stunned. He can't be very ugly, right? I don't think he's ugly. He probably looks weird, like a punk. Yes. His aura is especially strong. Although it's just a feeling, I really feel cold. No, you guys are wrong. Dumb Insect opened the back door and looked towards the southeast corner. What entered his eyes was an almost perfect face. His body kept leaning back to get a clearer look. However, he didn't expect that he would lose his balance and fall to the ground. Ouch! A painful cry sounded. Dumb Insect touched his butt and didn't forget to look in the direction of the young man, not far away. Chunhua looked at him speechlessly. She said with a reproachful tone, Why are you so excited? Don't tell me you got excited because you saw someone uglier than you. Ugly? Dumb Insect sneered again and said, To be honest, I have never seen such a handsome person in my life. Really? The students sitting at the side were doubtful. Chunhua didn't forget to add, Don't listen to his nonsense. I don't think he's a handsome guy. That's why he said that. Luo Qingshun listened to the discussion around her and took a deep breath. She pursed her lips and looked at Luo Qingmian beside her. Mian, Mian, I have a very strange feeling. Do you understand? It's the kind of excitement that surges in your heart, just like, sis, you don't have to say anymore. Luo Qingmian's fingers trembled as she swallowed her saliva nervously. I feel the same way as you. He also felt that it was very strange. This feeling was like a sudden surge of excitement from the depths of his heart. Very strange, very strange. Tell me, why do we have this feeling? At this moment, Hua Kaijin finally saw the person's face clearly under the refraction of the light. He stood up almost immediately, looked at Luo Qingshun and shouted, Qingshun. At the same time, her phone vibrated twice, and a familiar ringtone came through. The story between the two of them didn't even have the time to come to an end. Everything is different now. I don't know where to go from here on out. It seems to have become a wound in the coming year. She was suddenly startled. Her slender and fair hand trembled as she reached into her pocket. Under the gaze of all the students, he slowly took out his phone. She took a deep breath. Her left hand grabbed the corner of Luo Qingmian's shirt tightly, and her right hand flipped the phone to the front. What entered her eyes were the two words that she was most familiar with. Chapter 2451. Hello, teacher. Qian Sinai put his phone back in his pocket and politely nodded to the teacher. I am Qian Sinai. He stopped at the door of the class, and that handsome face that couldn't be described appeared in front of everyone. The teachers still hadn't recovered, and the students all looked at him in disbelief, filled with shock. Under the glimmering light, it was a face that was almost beautiful. He was wearing a white checkered shirt that was loosely tied at the wrist, looking simple and beautiful. His black bow tie was a bit loose, adding a bit of indescribable sexiness. It wasn't until a few seconds later that the teacher recovered from her shock. When she was prepared to walk in Qian Sinai's direction to welcome the new student, suddenly, a man darted out from behind her, chasing after her like a gust of wind. When she finally reacted, the scene in front of her was of a young girl hugging that peerless youth. At this moment, everything was still for Luo Qingshun. Everything around her didn't matter. She only knew that whether it was real or fake, At least at this moment, she could only tightly hug him, not caring if it was real or fake. Even if it was fake, she had to use all her space and time powers to freeze everything. Qian Sinai directly tightly hugged her and raised his right hand to softly pat her head. A cool as water voice with a faint gentleness slowly sounded in her ears. I'm back. No one could understand the meaning of these 4 words in her mind. It was like a belief that allowed her to be reborn. Wu-wah. She was almost crying in his embrace. Her voice was a bit hoarse when she spoke again. In the next second, she coughed lightly and said, Is it really you? Are you back? Qian Sinai, you really are too much. As soon as her voice fell, she jumped out of his embrace as tears fell down. She looked at him and said, Didn't you say you weren't coming back? Didn't you say you were going to sacrifice yourself to become a hero? Then why are you back now, do you know? She paused, and Qian Sinai slowly raised his right hand to wipe away the tears on her face. His eyes were slightly red, but he looked at her with a pampering gaze. Do you know how much we missed you? Is it you? Or is it you? His voice was still as pleasant to listen to, with a bit of low voice, but there was an indescribable gentleness to it. It's me. Luo Qingshun choked up as she said word for word. It's only me. It was probably because the conversation between the two was too dramatic that it took a while for the teacher in charge to react. She knocked the ferrule twice and said, What's wrong with you two? Even if it was a reunion after a long separation, they shouldn't be whispering sweet nothings to each other in public. This is the school. Don't be noisy, T. But before the teacher could finish, Luo Qingshun cut him off. Her voice was cold and choked with sobs. It was so sonorous and powerful. At the same time, the fluorescent lights in the classroom flickered, sometimes bright and sometimes dark. It made a strange Z sound. The teacher took a cold breath, and her legs went soft as she fell to the ground. The temperature in the classroom seemed to drop even lower. Even the originally clear sky was covered with a thin layer of dark clouds.